By the way,
is a right-wing narrative.
And have a look at what he said about the air crash in Washington.
Well, interesting. I mean, it just flew straight into it. And,
yeah, but all down to DEI, he says.
Well, it's probably you're not getting the best of the best because it's not a meritocracy.
Yeah, he says they're hiring air traffic controllers for their disabilities, not their abilities. That, folks, is all wrong. Stick with Ash and Andre. They'll take you through to 1 a.m. You've been an amazing audience. I've really enjoyed your company. I hope you found mine vaguely tolerable. I've been a mediocre host. I'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place, right here on Talk at 7 p.m. You better be there.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Right, before we even start, I'm just going to say this to everyone. Last night I decided to meet my mate for dinner and got to bed at 5 a.m. So I'm just feeling delicate. So let's just not shout or cause any trouble or do anything offensive.
But that is a good time for dinner, 3 in the morning, isn't it? I find sometimes.
Well, I suppose if you're like us and you get home at 2, going to bed at like 5's not that bad. I don't think it was the late night. It was more the quantity of alcohol.
Yeah, there was no food involved.
There was food, but
a bowl of chips.
Yeah, that's right. It was a Wigan buffet, peanuts and crisps.
Yeah. Sounds good, man.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. By the way, I'm sorry to say this, but Donald Trump's description of American air traffic control is just genius. Barack, for those of you unaware, obviously, there was a plane crash in the United States of America. Absolutely terrible thing. Regional jet slammed into a Black Hawk helicopter. So, obviously, there's been some sort of major cock-up with the air traffic control. But also, Donald Trump was going on and on and on about the fact that under Obama and Biden, they dropped the standards for air traffic control. And they were saying that people who were severely intellectually disabled should be allowed, and people who have severe psychological disturbances should be allowed as well. And so it's possible. I don't know if it's true.
Well, it happened with his Secret Service, didn't he? I mean, there were women there who were like a foot lower than him, so they're hardly going to be able to cover his head. They're meant to take a bullet for him, but they were too short.
Yeah, so apparently the big problem with traffic control in the United States of America is that there's too many white people in it. So they've said they wanted to drop the standards of people, and they gave a list of people that could do it, including people who were blind, deaf, psychologically disturbed, thick as pig shit, bluntly, It's unbelievable.
No, I mean...
But it's the diversity quotas.
People are moaning, going, oh, he's saying that diverse people... He's not saying that. He's saying just that it could be white people that aren't good at it. He wants just the best people in the jobs, whatever colour or creed they are.
I mean, I don't know how it's going to turn out, and we'll talk about the bigger stories in the UK in a minute, but I have to say, if we find out that the reason why there's been a crash in the United States of America with 70 people dying in their nation's capital, and it's because somebody who was demonstrably unqualified became an air traffic controller on the grounds that they were, I don't know, Asian or neurologically disturbed or whatever it was, or in the worst case scenario, somebody who's actually psychologically beneath the standard needed and done it deliberately. I don't know if that's happened, obviously.
But it was understaffed. I read the plate. There should be two people, one doing the helicopter thing and one doing and it was one air traffic controller because they're understaffed in Washington at the airport.
It's crazy because things can go wrong so quickly. Anyway, the taxpayer has spent £4 million on clothing for illegal immigrants. Unbelievable. How much are we spending per day? Let's have a look at this. Taxpayer fund new clothes and shoes for Channel crossing migrants.
That's Chanel crossing.
Chanel crossing. £3,000 every day, a total of £4,000 in 4 years. I mean, the problem is...
4 million in 3 years.
4 million in 3 years. People
£3,000 a day.
People kick off about this, but we're just becoming the dustbin of the world, aren't we? Bring your absolute talentless idiots, unemployable, no skills, I mean, I'm not talking about the legitimate...
A bit dodgy as well, because a lot of them are throwing their passports away, which sort of rings alarm bells. But we go, oh, no, don't worry about that. We'll get you a hotel and a phone and some new clothes and you'll be right as rain to
absolutely.
Do what you want.
Absolutely. I'll tell you what, let's we couldn't play the under-10s football team this week because they didn't have facilities to shave before they went on, right? I mean, it's just ludicrous.
You better not question them, though.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I saw one bloke and he was older than that Femi. Do you remember Femi? Do you remember Femi from the campaign who was like about 50 and just claimed to be a child?
I had a mate at school who it turned out was much older than us, and when he was 15 in the first year, and he was... he was shaving and that in the first year, and he was bigger than all of us. And by the 5th year, he was smaller than all of us. So there was obviously something going on. But yeah, found out he was 15.
That's a fascinating story.
Nice lad, though. Good lad.
That's a fascinating yarn, isn't it? There was a bloke in my school who used to be tall, but then wasn't. Oh well.
No, it was because he was old, like. You know what I mean? He was actually a short man.
It's a shame Peter Ustinov's dead, isn't it? But anyway, let's chat to our guest, Lois McClatchy-Miller. Lois, look, we do want to be sympathetic to the plight of people from war-torn countries, but Kosovo, you know, you're talking about Albania, and also I was thinking about this Axel Rudikabana. You know, now you come over from Rwanda and never go back. What happens, it seems to me, is that all of the issues with illegal migrants and all the issues with asylum seekers is just pick whichever country you fancy, get over there.
Yeah, well, I think the average person in Britain is not opposed to providing clothes and shelter for genuine refugees, genuine people who have escaped extreme circumstances. I mean, we're all compassionate people, and no one has a problem with that. But it's the scale and it's the lack of screening, isn't it? And, you know, we've just come out of the back of a month's worth of scandal where we've learned about grooming gangs who are dominantly from migrant backgrounds, who have targeted and terrorised little girls who live in Britain, you know, who just fell victim to these as prey to these horrific gangs committing horrific crimes. And I think the British public are just a bit fed up of not having that, you know, not being able to distinguish, our government is not able to distinguish between these genuine people in need and these criminals who are coming over unchecked, and it's putting our children in danger.
What's happened is, under international law, which was invented in the Inns of Court in about 1975 by a group of lawyers, under international law, anyone who wants to come to Britain should be allowed to do so for economic migrant reasons. The problem is we've got two immigration systems. We've got one that exists in theory and one that exists in practice. In theory, you can only come here if you're a refugee from a war-torn country. In practice, if you're an economic migrant and you claim to be a refugee, you're absolutely fine. And we spend millions and millions and millions making these lawyers incredibly rich, destroying our immigration system.
But why was it in the last 3 years? It wasn't happening 6-7 years ago. We'd get like 400 illegal immigrants or whatever. Suddenly, what has happened in the last 3 years?
I'll tell you what I think's happened. I think what's happened is, do you remember the build a wall in France and make Britain pay? We built that wall around the trailer park or sorry, the container park at Calais, and then suddenly people got on dinghies. I suspect there was enormous.
Yeah, but it happened in the States. Suddenly in America, everyone was getting hotels the last 3 or 4 years. So I think it comes from that,
that's a good
WEF
point,
and.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
Good point. Well, we know, and I don't want to go on and on about George Soros, but we know that he funds organisations to coach people on how to blag the immigration system, pretend you're 15 and whatever. We know that there are people there lying to people in Calais.
And you just wonder, is it even reversible at this point? I mean, our borders have been so lax for the last few years, and you wonder, is it civil servants who are kind of ideologically persuaded by one way, or people who are driven by genuine compassion but over common sense, who have been controlling these policies over the last few years? And now we're in a state where hotels are absolutely full, to the extent that people who come are not living in sustainable conditions at all. They are living in filth because there isn't space. It isn't kind to be. It isn't compassionate to take in people and not have adequate resources.
I mean, when we are displaced from the United Kingdom, where are we going to move to?
Hungry.
I'm dead
Guantanamo Bay.
I mean, what you got? Sadiq Khan's policy on migration in London would put 1 million people out on the streets? Some crazy number like that?
My goodness, yeah. But there's layers upon layers of problems here, and I always bring up as well that we as a nation have not had an adequate fertility rate, so that if we had zero migration, we'd also have a problem. We wouldn't have enough people if it was just Britons on their own. And so
what is sad is immigration makes us poorer. Now, let's just make this very clear to people who don't understand why the Treasury is lying to you. Right, effectively, people come to the UK, that makes, if you like, the cake bigger. But there are more slices of it when people come here, just to make it very, very simple. So what happens is the United Kingdom on the whole becomes richer, but individuals become poorer. And I think people can see how uncontrolled immigration has made them poorer.
Yeah, I think that's certainly true. And there has, in relation to that, been a spike in crime because of a lack of control, a lack of integration, actually, a very, very poor integration strategy. Whilst the UK has been very welcoming, we have not been sustainably able to help people integrate, and so we have these kind of parallel communities that, which aren't contributing to our society.
But they're having a lot of kids, because they're not actually having to pay for their kids, they're getting it paid for. And people here, like young people, can't afford houses. They're seeing they can't afford to raise a family, so that will also exacerbate it.
That's right, Asher. If you look at the Labour government's policy on housing, you have to buy two, don't you? There's a 40% social housing target, which means, let's call it 50-50, because it almost is. It means if I want a house for myself, I've got to buy a house for somebody who pays absolutely nothing. And the priority will be illegal immigrants and migrants. And the reason is very simple. I mean, I was against social housing in Windsor. I wanted it abolished. The reason is because what they do is they simply take a compass and say, within the catchment area, who are the people in greatest need? And the reality is the people in greatest need are migrant families from Slough, because they don't have anywhere else to go because they're migrant families. And so all you are doing with social housing is putting up the cost of housing for us in order to give it to somebody who has made no contribution whatsoever. So you'd be better not doing it at all.
Yeah, and it's very difficult because there are some migrant families who came here legitimately and have worked to integrate and have contributed in society.
Like the royal family there in Windsor, in this big social house.
Well, indeed,
They're
for
immigrants,
example,
aren't they?
immigrants from Germany.
And Scotland, aren't they? Yeah. More Scottish and German than they are English.
Well, maybe I'm also an immigrant from Scotland, so maybe I can't speak
we all are.
too critically. But the problem of having so many who are unsustainable here is that it drags down the reputation of those who have come and made a fair shot of it and have integrated and have contributed, being doctors, nurses, teachers, and that puts them in a very difficult situation.
I keep saying that. My mate's Ukrainian, and he finds it astonishing that we are emptying Britain of British people and filling it up with migrants from across the world. I mean, he at one point thought there was a conspiracy to destroy the British nation. I mean,
well, it does seem since Brexit. I think a lot of them are bitter, the Remainers, and I think some of them within, the civil, all the captured places want to get the other people. They think they're getting us back.
I do think, though, that there's a tendency to blame all of our societal problems on immigration, and sometimes we have to also be critical of the way that British society has just kind of fallen into disrepair of its own accord. You know, the policies that the government shell out apart from immigration have destroyed, you know, the structure of the family, have been very poor in education, have really crumbled and caused decline and crime in our cities that's not only perpetrated by migrants but British people ourselves. So I think we have to also have a bit of criticism on the
I think you're right that crime is to do with societal breakup. There are multiple reasons.
But why is it broken up? Probably because, you know, the lack of homogeneous society.
That's absolutely right.
It didn't happen years ago, did it?
You're not going to rob the local shop if it's owned by your uncle, or at least you're less likely to. Yeah. And therefore, you know, one of the problems with both migrants and societal breakdown, because it has the same impact on crime, is that you're not bothered about smashing up your community because it's not really yours.
Yeah, I think that's true. And you know, we're such a kind of diasporic society. Like, barely anyone grew up in London, but so many people live here. Very few people actually live in the communities that they grew up in anymore. We don't stay near our parents.
They can't afford to in London, you know what I mean?
Well, indeed, if they grew up in London, that's very true. But we don't kind of stay and look after our parents in the way that generations before would have. And we don't have so many nieces and nephews that we're kind of on a daily basis involved in the lives of, and that's really isolated us. And I think that has caused a lack of care about our community. And
well, the deindustrialisation and running down of northern cities, and that's happening now in Germany. You know, they're about to become deindustrialised. So this is what's happening, and it all centred down London, didn't it?
Yeah,
and that ruined the local communities all over the provincial places.
And we have, you know, a loneliness crisis, divorce rate an all-time high, abortion rates really high.
If you're young, you don't want to stay in your town. You know, a lot of people in Birmingham or big cities, even then, they wanted to leave because it changed so much and they didn't see much opportunity.
Yeah, a lot of people don't see the places that they grew up in anymore because they just don't exist anymore.
It's amazing, actually, the way, and like it or not, when I think of an East Ender now, I think of a Bangladeshi. I don't think of a Cockney. I mean, I don't know if Cockneys exist, but I've certainly not met any.
Yeah,
no,
it's really
they're a novelty now, aren't they? You know, if there is one in the East End, it will be sort of a tourist trap. You know what I mean? That's what it's like. The Brick Lane Bakery. It's now a tourist place because it's like old. It's a museum now.
It's like I mean, the Bevis Marks Synagogue in Liverpool Street, I think, has got a regular attendance of 5 or something like that. I mean, there's not, because the Jewish community of the East End are gone.
That's where my family was.
To be fair, I mean, in fairness to the Jewish community of the East End, they were also migrants at one point. So you've got to be fair-minded with that. But for me, the whole dance halls, jelly deals, and All White Governor and all that, those lot don't exist at all.
Do you know what I think a big part of it is actually the decline of the church? I mean, we can talk about it from a religious perspective, but also having a place that everybody met together on a Sunday. Everybody knew who each other's were. Everyone knew each other's business, and was able to care. Oh, someone's sick. Oh, don't worry about the kids.
But why did that stop? Because that sort of in the 60s, people sort of stopped going to church, unless it started declining.
Well, you say that, but remember, the Georgian era was a period. Was it the Georgian era? Let me get whatever it was. There have been periods in British history where Christianity has badly declined. Yeah. I got told that there was a time when the regular attendance at St Paul's Cathedral was 25.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is lower than now.
Lower
you
than
get
now.
a lot of space for that.
I mean, it'd be absolutely cavernous.
I mean, what is Christianity except death and resurrection, right? So, like, throughout history, it's always going to be up and down. And in fact, William Wilberforce, who ended the slave trade for Britain, he worked for his whole life to try and get this social justice, which was a big Christian issue at the time, to end slavery. And when he started, the church was at an all-time low. But as he worked, there was a Christian revival again, and that actually helped to overturn slavery nowadays.
I mean, I will tell you what, you know how people go, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but Asher and I are conspiracy theorists on the following issue. All of these attacks on the pub, smoking, alcohol taxes, whatever, we believe...
You're not allowed to say anything, or you have to be reported to the Gestapo.
We believe that the lefties are trying to deconstruct the infrastructure of working class Britain, because they feel that, I believe that someone like Keir Starmer believes that you cannot do to this country what he wants to do as long as the pubs exist.
Because that's where it went. Look at the Chartist movement in the 1820s. It was all about meeting in the northern pubs and Birmingham pub and London. You know, the Peterloo massacre. So that was where it all happens. So that's.
I'll tell you, my favourite was when the city of Manchester attempts to nationalise the Free Trade Hall. You think, what on earth are you thinking? And they go, but this has been a public facility for years. It's called the Free Trade Hall. You can't nationalise it, right? It's just ludicrous. Besides, it's an excellent hotel.
It's like Trump and the Panama Canal, isn't it, in Greenland?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, by the way, are you aware You are not going to believe this. This is Alan's fact of the day, right? That Denmark, if it puts Greenland up for sale, according to a treaty from about 1815, it has to sell it to Britain first.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Can we buy it?
We can buy it.
We're going to wreck it.
We can buy it. We can buy it.
They'll give it away.
We need to fix our own country first.
Yeah,
I
that's
think.
right. What we'll do is we'll give it to that fat moron David Lammy, and something bad will happen.
How about we buy it and we'll sell it?
He'll give it to Mauritius.
Yeah, what he'll do is he'll give it to the Gold Coast or something. He'll give it to somebody on the grounds of its involvement in the transatlantic slave trade, which it wasn't involved with at all.
As an apology.
Yeah, it'll be the land of colour.
The old mastermind.
It's not Greenland anymore.
Our mastermind foreign secretary.
Let's just remind ourselves what David Lammy said in answer to the question, who was the son of Henry VIII? He said Henry VII.
Oh, no.
I mean, that is just...
And which Marie was invented the X-ray? Was it Antoinette?
Maria.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
I mean...
He got everything wrong, by the way, 0.
I mean, let's just be
That's
clear.
our
I mean,
foreign
I don't know
secretary.
if everybody knows about Marie Curie, but I mean, you'd have a guess, wouldn't you?
Well, you certainly going to say Marie Antoinette.
Yeah, Marie Antoinette invented the X-ray.
Let them eat radiation.
I mean, what an absolute
Not so hot in
moron.
his foreign
I
politics.
honestly believe that David Lammy doesn't know why giving away the Chagos Islands is a bad idea. I think Starmer does. Starmer believes that whatever you do in this country, if you support the concept of international law, the world will be a better place. Right. Even if that means handing the Chagos Islands to China, it'll still be a better place because of international law. But here's the clue: nobody listens other than the British.
Yeah.
Anyway, more next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yes, this is Talk as I hand Asher his
Just
cup
one
of
of
tea.
those as
Do
well,
you want water as well?
Yeah, a bit
Let's
dehydrated.
see, there we go. Right, okay, well, we're joined now by Phil Dave, who is a broadcaster and well-dressed bloke and...
Bon viveur.
Bon viveur.
Yeah.
Nice, thank you.
So what have you
I've
got?
been called worse.
What have you got to tell
Also,
us?
head of visualisation for Talk Sport.
Which is why we've got the Talk Sport glasses in honour.
I did observe that there was a bit of
bit of branding.
cross-promotion going on here. Well done.
Okay, so you are able to tell us, I don't know why we're saying this, but we can watch Talk Sport on the TV. Explain.
Well, not now. We're on air.
Well, you're
You'll
watching
distract
Talk,
us.
hopefully, now.
Right,
But
I'm contracted obliged to say it, right? I don't care, don't watch it. Right, what we'll do is, right, stop for a minute, because this is the clip we'll send to management. So Phil is the new fish. Yeah, no, stop again, right? We can't tell the management that we told them not to watch. Right, stop. OK. Well, Phil Dave joins us now. He's the head of visualisation at TalkSport, and we're holding our TalkSport glasses specially to celebrate the fact that you can now watch TalkSport on TV.
That's very kind of you, Andre. Yes, you're quite right. That in very much the same way you can watch Talk on your smart television, you can now watch TalkSport in a very similar fashion. So there you go. Our sister channel is now fully visualised. It's very exciting.
So what happens? It's just the same as when you've got your Freeview box, you press the red button and then you just install the channel.
Well, all of the favourite places that you might watch Talk, you can now watch TalkSport as well. So
well, that's a declining number, to be fair, if I'm being
so it's anything from YouTube to LG's to Apple TV, Amazon, the Fire Sticks, Roku, all of that.
Other brands are available.
I think I've just listed most of them. Like you say, other brands are available.
I got that stick where you can watch any TV channel in the world.
What, the illegal one where they burst your doors down and arrest you?
The one that we are trying to aim people to get.
It is. Yeah.
Is that the illegal stick?
Yeah, it is the illegal stick. Yeah.
Well, we don't condone that.
But
is it on the illegal stick?
Yes.
One would assume it's on the illegal stick illegally.
So you can watch it illegally if you're a bit that way inclined.
I
don't condone it.
Do you know the only reason I got the illegal stick, just to be clear, genuinely,
research.
I was only watching free-to-air news channels that don't broadcast in the UK.
Free-to-air?
Yeah, so I wanted to watch, as an example, the night before the Ukrainian war, I wanted to watch Russian and Belarusian TV. And Belarusian TV, believe it or not, on virtually every channel was running the TV, the film Come and See, about the 1943 German invasion of Belarus. Because the line that was being sold to all of them was there was a Holocaust taking place in Ukraine, and Russia had to step in like it did to prevent the last Holocaust.
So that was your justification for wanting to possibly watch TV in an illegal fashion?
Yes. Yes, right. Quite genuinely, I didn't want to watch any of the channels that you have to pay for, simply because I didn't want to steal from anyone, right?
Well, talking of theft...
Oh, here we go.
You're going to talk about shoplifting.
Very nice.
Yeah.
That's what we call a segue.
OK, it's up.
Loads of
25% last year. Don't know about you, but I spend my life going into shops where people just walk out with stuff. And in fact, actually, and I'm not encouraging you to do anything illegal, you feel like a fool for actually paying.
I know. Well, I just feel very sorry for the security guards. I think it's been about 3 times this week I've seen this happen. And people walk out and they can't do anything. They're stood there. But what can they do? Alarms go off.
They're actually told not to do anything.
They get sacked
they
get sacked if they do something.
Yeah, I thought
because apparently they're there as a deterrent.
It just
well,
looks
that's
a bit
working. But you know, they're there as a deterrent. And apparently, if they actually catch someone in the act, they're not allowed to do anything.
The reason shoplifting's gone up is because now it's very much an honesty box system, isn't it?
Yeah.
Pay if you want to, but you don't really have to.
Yeah.
And that's although
you do have to.
Although I have to say, that's not true of Lidl. I mean, they will run after you in Lidl. I've seen it loads of times. They really do go for you.
But I have a theory about how
what makes me laugh about Lidl. It's that cheap. You could pay with 5 magic beans, couldn't you?
I've got a theory about how supermarkets are probably going to go and like what direction they're going to travel in order to try and combat this. Is a lot of people have lambasted the likes of Amazon Fresh for basically sort of being a supermarket that doesn't require checkout staff, because if anyone doesn't know how this particular concept supermarket works, is that you have an account that's associated with a form of payment. So, you know, if your Amazon account, and I would say other supermarkets are available, but the truth is not like this.
Not really.
But you'd have obviously your Amazon account is associated with a method of payment, and the way that you're allowed into that particular supermarket is you have to associate it. You have to scan a barcode that associates with your application, your account, and your payment method. And when you take something off the shelf, there are cameras all over the place and scales on the shelves and all sorts of literal invisible lasers that are keeping an eye on everything, and it automatically charges you for what you walk out of the shop with.
But can I tell you something else that's quite funny? The other thing that Amazon have had to admit, there's also a hidden group of people in India watching the cameras because not all the systems work all the time.
There is a security guard there as well. And,
good on
it doesn't feel like a real shop, because when you look at it, the tins are spaced out a bit so the robots can see in it. It's like a concept shopping. It's not like, when you see a concept car, it doesn't seem
but we're
like
still
a real...
very early days of this technology. So, I mean, like, as they refine this a bit more, more and actually make it more spot on.
Are self-checkouts the work of Satan, Lois?
Well, what I feel a bit creeped out about by those kind of shops is that means you just can't use cash. And I think the death of cash is actually
sinister.
It is a little bit more sinister than people realize. And I am such a culprit of this because I don't think I've had cash in my purse since 2021. To be honest, I just pay for everything by card.
Yeah.
But it is true
But that means, Lois, that means when you think about it, you think, oh well, it's it's only 1% or whatever. But that means that every taxi driver now pays 1% of their entire earnings to Visa or MasterCard or whoever it is. And you think, actually, when you start thinking about it being 1% of the entire economy is now going to credit card companies, you think, actually, this is not as good as what it sounds.
And we are so reliant on this little bit of plastic. And, I hate to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but during the pandemic in Canada, we saw when those truckers came out to protest and they blocked the roads because they didn't want to be forced to get a vaccine. The government shut off their funds because they could shut off their cards. Overnight, they had
Well, look at Farage,
money.
and when he did it, it turned out thousands of people have been debanked in this country.
Right, well, yeah, exactly.
Same thing, man.
I'm a hypocrite because I don't use cash, but I should, and I think we all should, to be honest. We should keep it alive because
and
it's a bit
sometimes
of independence.
you give them a tenner and they think you give them, and you used to get a bit, another tenner change. You can't do that when you use your card.
What? How did you? Why?
I never got that lucky.
Occasionally, yeah.
I actually know I lied. You know what? Actually, you say that the self-checkouts are the devil's work. The truth... Oh, I shouldn't admit this now, but I'm going to...
He's admitted his illegal stick.
So
I've admitted getting...
is that I paid cash into a self-checkout, and for argument's sake, I think I put in £20 to pay for, I don't know, like say £16 worth of shopping, and it couldn't have been 16, it must have been £14 or something like that, and it spat out the £5 change plus the £1 plus the original 20. So, and it actually registered me as
having
paid.
Bamboozle them. No one puts money in those machines, do they? This is a very... You're so old-fashioned.
No, what you should do is go to the cash machine, get money out.
What, using self-checkout with cash?
Yeah.
This is really old-fashioned.
No, I think you should go to the cash machine, get your money out, and then put it in the machine.
Yeah.
You
can't be bothered, though,
I'll tell you what. This is very illegal, so do not do this. Obviously,
we're all admitting. Lois hasn't admitted what she's done.
I did think it was quite funny, the bloke who bypassed the self-checkout machine, because instead of scanning his items through, what he would do is he'd claim they were onions, because then he'd just put the weight. So, right, what happens is it weighs your shopping, doesn't it? So if you say this glass is an onion, it charges you 3 pence for the glass.
That is clever.
He put everything down.
Do you know what? I mean, you've got to be fair. That is it's
like
obviously illegal, but it is quite smart.
Points for creativity.
Obviously, we do not encourage that.
No.
It reminded me, when they brought the new expenses system in for MPs, and that, you had to put in that receipt, but you could put down as many miles as you wanted.
Yeah.
So I mean, I had one MP. He must have claimed about 80 grand a year in driving. That was just completely ridiculous. You think, well, if there's one weakness to the system, you might as well not have the system at all. It's a complete waste of time. But what are we going to do about shoplifting? And also, is it related to immigration?
Oh, gracious me, how long have you got? Well, might I say that regardless of whether it is or it is not related to immigration, and I dare say that I suspect it has something to do with it, not all of it, I would suggest that a suitable punishment would be a good start. I mean,
Death penalty.
The fact that security guards can't even lambast, never mind stop them and then get on top of them, what have you, and actually sort of steal back the goods, kind of thing, or take back the goods that they're trying to steal, that would be a jolly good start, because they actually make it a proper deterrent.
What about, now I make this as a serious comment, the stocks, right? Now I know this sounds stupid, but in the history in Britain, people used to get put in the stocks and have rotten vegetables thrown at them, because for just basically for doing something a bit TWAT-ish. Right, and basically,
I don't think that was the expression they used.
You weren't. You're not going to be hurt. You're not going to be put in prison.
Yeah.
But on Sunday, they basically go, oh, that's Bob Jones who did whatever, and
they
people
used
laugh.
to drag them through the streets saying shame, shame,
Yeah.
all that.
And it worked.
Like that,
It worked.
A bit of shaming, a bit of judgment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just done away with judgment in the 21st century.
Absolutely. But my point is this: rather than giving somebody, someone who's on the social receiving a fine means we're paying for it, right? The other point is Well, it's true, though, isn't it? It's true.
It's an endless loop.
All what they do is to pay the fine, they half inch another can of Stella, right, or something like that, right? But what?
Or you could look at it like this. Actually, the revenue's getting some of our money back.
Yeah, all right, fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, that's it's.
So actually, find these cretins.
Well,
The revenue let all these money laundering barbers and shops go on.
It's
the candy
been
shops, so they're in on it.
what's happened is the fine is diverting money from Top's Pizza to the Treasury, right? Special Brews lost 40 quid. But if you had a humiliation punishment where it was just you spent a day on a Sunday just being laughed at, then you know what? It's fairly harmless. You get over it. I'll tell you what. I've got a friend of mine in New York who went to the drunk tank. Just to explain what they do in New York, if you're drunk and disorderly on the streets, they don't fine you. They stick you in a room with everybody else they've scooped up.
We used to have that here like 400 years ago.
And he said they were vomiting, pooing, peeing. He said it was.
And that was just the stuff.
He said, I will tell you, you went to the drunk tank in New York once and never ever returned because it was absolute filth. He said they were fighting. He said all they did was they opened at 5:30 in the morning. They opened the door, hosed it down, ready for the next night, and that was it. He said it was absolutely rotten. Anyway, we're going to be back in a couple of moments talking about Trump banning gender reassignment for under 19s. Yes.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Okay, so we are going to talk about Donald Trump in a couple of moments, but before we do, we've got a guest coming on the show who wants to talk about two-tier policing. The guest is Isabel Vaughan-Spruce, who was arrested for praying silently in her own head. Right, Isabel, this is just annoying. Can you explain what happened?
Sure, and it wasn't just an isolated incident with a rogue police officer. It happened time after time, and not just to me, but to my friends and colleagues too. I've been arrested and searched on the streets, put in a police cell for hours before being interrogated about my silent, imperceptible thoughts. I've had to go through the courts to clear my name, and even after that, I've been rearrested by 6 police officers who told me that my prayers were an offence. And even after that, I've still had police officers coming out, giving me various tickets and warnings. In the end, I actually had to take legal proceedings against the police to try and get the behaviour that they were
Which police force was it, just so we can annoy them?
Well, I don't want people to annoy the police. I live in Birmingham. Well, the incidents happened in Birmingham, so that was the police force. And obviously, you know, I'm not saying that every police officer is like this, but there's far, far too many. It wasn't just one police officer.
The reality is that the police in Birmingham are institutionally racist against the indigenous population.
Was it orders from above them? Were they just carrying out orders, as they say?
It's hard to know. I mean, I've certainly tried to take it further up the chain. And, you know, for instance, when a police officer that I was talking to and I was complaining that we ourselves were being assaulted, and the police officer said to me, well, if you don't want to be assaulted, don't come out of your house. I tried to take that comment higher up the chain, saying that this isn't appropriate, you know. People
you should have said the same thing to him. Don't complain about being assaulted as a police officer. It's you that chose to get the job. I mean, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Yeah.
I don't want anyone to be assaulted.
No, I agree with that, but I'm just saying what you could have said just to be ultimately irritating to him.
But what happened in your court case? You said you had a court case. What happened in that?
I was acquitted within, well, I was going to say minutes, almost seconds. The prosecution offered no evidence at all because there wasn't any evidence. I'd just been silently saying my prayers on a street corner. But like I say, after I'd been to court, I was rearrested for doing exactly the same thing in exactly the same spot.
I'm going to bring Lois Miller in a minute. But do you think that this is just a project to just harass Christians?
Intimidate.
Well, it does seem that those of us who've got Christian beliefs are the ones that are suffering most with this. And like I say, I've got a lot of friends who've been through similar things. I just think that most people aren't prepared to, you know, have their livelihoods or relationships or reputations turned on their heads. And so they will just kind of keel over and be treated as second-class citizens.
Do you think they came back, arrested you again to get you back for that court case? Because they knew it was it was thrown out of court, so they knew it was ridiculous to do it again. Do you think that was just the punishment is the process? They just wanted to get you back?
I almost feel like I've been made an example of, and I've
but it was a stupid example if they got acquitted the first time to do it again. It's just they're just trying to intimidate you, aren't they?
By the way, I'm sorry just to stop the show for a second, but see that warning that's flashing up? Don't take a call from this person because he says basically too much.
Probably one of Mike Dickens' old call. Don't say basically.
Do you think, Isabel, before we go over to Lois, do you think that if you're a Hindu or a Sikh or a Muslim, you would be harassed in this way?
Well, all I can say is that a lot of my friends who are Christians have been through the same process, and yet when we ourselves are Christians who have been the victims of assault and, you know, certainly very antisocial behaviour, some of my colleagues have actually been physically assaulted, we'll dial 999, the police won't even respond to that. Yeah. So it certainly seems like two-tier policing.
I mean, I've noticed, I mean, we've got a Christian preacher who regularly phones up a guy called Ken, quite a nice bloke, and he's evangelical and whatever. But he has had a very positive experience with the police, so I don't want to be unfair. But the examples that I see are, you know, you hear these evangelicals, they might go a little bit far, but they will be taken off the streets. Whereas when al-Muhajirun were literally supporting the World Trade Center attack by holding events to commemorate it, the police seemed cock-a-hoop.
I just want everyone to be treated equally, no matter whether they've got, you know, religious beliefs one way or the other, or they're atheistic. The law is the law, and that's all we want. We just want the law to be, you know, dealt with fairly, people to be dealt with fairly.
Lois, the reality is that as far as the police are concerned, Isabel is the most unlikely right-wing extremist. I mean, she doesn't exactly look like a sort of skinhead far-right thug, but everyone's a far-right thug now, aren't they?
Well, yeah, I mean, only last year Prevent put out a programme, a training course about identifying extremists, and actually they said that anti-abortion is one of the narratives that people should watch out for, which doesn't make sense at all in this country.
Well, Hope Not Hate think that if you read Rudyard Kipling, then you are a right-wing thug. I mean,
Well,
I'm not
indeed.
being funny, but highbrow literature is not normally associated with street violence. But I mean, you know, it could.
There's never been any attacks in America. There has been, but not in this country.
No,
it's a very peaceful
not
movement.
at all.
Yeah, you don't see people run up going, betwixt you and I, thus we will fight.
Right, exactly. And maybe, Isabel, you know, you can speak to the many, many women that you've helped over the years. You know, people have characterised you as well. I've been working with you on your case for some years now, and I've seen the press mischaracterise you time and time again as somebody who's harassing or intimidating. And I think we can all see, speaking to you now, that I don't think there's any way that you could have possibly been intimidating to anyone as a kind, charitable volunteer. But why don't you speak a little bit about the work that you do outside those clinics to show that it is far from anything that's criminal?
Well, this is the sad thing, Lois. So before the buffer zones came in, you know, I've been doing this for over 20 years now, going outside abortion centres. There'd be maybe 2 or 3 people at the most, sometimes quietly saying some prayers, but just offering some leaflets of help to women going in if they wanted. We would just say something like, you know, is there any help that you would like, or can we offer you a leaflet? And the amount of women that we've had who have been so grateful for that help, you know, whether it might be help with accommodation or financial support, or sometimes just a friend to talk to. But women
Sorry, Isabel, can I just stop you? Because I think this is a really important point, because I think you've been characterised as people like in America with megaphones and all this sort of thing. What you are actually doing is providing a service. But just explain to me about people who've said yes to your service. So are you telling me that personally some people have gone, oh, actually, I am at my wit's end, can you help me? And you've gone, yes, I can, get in the car and we'll do whatever. Is that true?
I've had many, many, many women and couples, dozens and dozens and dozens of them, yes.
So the baby's been born in the end because of what your intervention?
Wow.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Because those services are not offered in the abortion clinic. Also, the other thing that I hadn't quite realised about abortion clinics, if you have a baby that sadly dies during your pregnancy, at the later stages you have to go to the abortion clinic anyway, so not everybody walking in is actually having an abortion, and I can imagine it'd be particularly traumatic with what happens in America. But for me, offering an alternative to abortion ought to be part of the service.
And it's tragic that many women are going to an abortion centre, maybe undecided, just wanting some counselling, and they end up having an abortion. And this is what, sadly, I've spoken to a lot of post-abortive women who've said that they actually felt quite pressured to have an abortion. But we're simply there to offer that alternative to those that want them. And like I say, many women, particularly nowadays when you know, things are quite hard financially for some women, they really welcome just having somebody to talk to.
I've changed my mind. I used to be somebody who was anti-abortion but didn't believe in banning abortion. I now believe in banning it, and I'll tell you the reason. Because it's clear with this low birth rate we've got to do something, and unfortunately, whether you like it or not, it's clear to me now that unwanted pregnancies were part of our population.
But you can't force someone, really, can you?
But what are
you going to do? Tie them up?
But surely the right response in a crisis pregnancy, right, is for the community to gather around and do what Isabel's doing and say, we can help you. You know, this is a crisis, but we can find a way through, and you know, we're going to be there for you, and we're going to find the nappies that you need. We're going to, you know, be able to support you, which is the great charitable work that Isabel does.
Right. Here's my question, and Lois and Isabel, either both, perhaps you could both answer. But here's what I don't understand. Why has it got into the police's thick skull that Isabel is a problem?
Right.
Because I mean, it's very clear to me. You know, I mean, look, Isabel could come on the show and lie, but I think it's pretty obvious she's not lying, isn't it? Right? It's pretty obvious that she's not somebody who's shouting abuse or fighting people in the streets or any of that. Why do the police believe? What is it the police think she's doing?
I actually wanted to ask that question to Isabel.
Okay, Lois, Isabel, go for it.
You've stolen the thunder.
Well, for a long time, there's been quite a bit of pressure put on by some locals, and I think also by the abortion centre, who don't want us there. Let's be honest, abortion centres make money from abortion. They don't make money from women who turn away and decide to keep their babies. Right. There's also, if we're quite honest, quite a lot of people who are hurting after an abortion. If we think that there's about 1 in 3 women who've had an abortion, and abortion does damage women. I speak to a lot of people, women and men actually, who can be very damaged by abortion.
You sometimes can't get pregnant again after an abortion. It can cause problems.
I think Isabel meant emotionally rather than physically.
Well, and physically, though.
Yeah, also.
Well, especially if you have more than one.
90% of abortions are through the abortion pill, and approximately 1 in 17 women who have the abortion pill end up in hospital with complications. So yes, physically people can be affected as well.
Oh, of course, this 1 in 3 thing, the morning after pill is most of the people. Sorry, in my mind I'd thought of it as the very invasive later stage abortions.
Has anyone who you've talked out of abortion come back to you and gone, I wish you hadn't talked me out and I would have had an abortion? Has anyone ever done that?
100% not. No, they are all very, very grateful.
Because the other thing is, Isabel, this is the bit that people forget. Right, people are not delighted to have an abortion. Right, they're at their wits' end, and people say, "Oh, it's not only poverty." Well, hang on. If you're a career woman and you can't give up your job because of a lack of support, then essentially you're having an abortion due to poverty. It doesn't matter that you make 80 grand a year. If the reason that you're having the abortion is that you can't give up the job, you're doing it due to poverty. It's just a fact.
It's incredible how many women feel pressured into having an abortion, either by a partner or family, or sometimes just by circumstances, like you've just said. Nobody should feel pressured into having an abortion for any reason in this country. There's so much help available.
Is there though? I mean, I just feel like we were talking earlier, and perhaps you weren't sort of plugged in at that moment, Isabel, about the societal breakdown, about the fact that there isn't the grandparents around to help you with the kids in the way perhaps there would have been 50 years ago. And I just wonder if the problem is not merely abortion, the problem is everything we're doing.
But here's the irony, though, is that, we do see societal breakdown. And then so people will say, well, pro-life movement, if you want to be pro-life, then help these women. And people like Isabel do go out
I'll tell you what
help.
we're going to do. Because we wanted to talk about this properly. Let's go to a break quickly and keep Isabel on, because I wouldn't mind exploring what our society can do to help parents.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yes, this is Talk, and we've still got Isabel Vaughan-Spruce with us. Isabel, look, I think before the break we were talking about the lack of support for families. What do you think, well, I mean, forget this government because it's stone dead, what a sensible government could do to just change the wider ether, if you like, of an unsupportive society for families?
I would say at the most basic level, at least let those organisations that do provide help, like the amazing organisations like the Good Counsel Network, They do so much help for pregnant women, for couples who are struggling.
Can you Google that? What's it called? A Good Counsel Network?
Yes, and they help after as well for as long as that woman or couple needs it, and they've helped women for years and years and years. But it's so hard for these organisations, and I know because I connect with them a lot, that we can't even share the truth. We're not allowed to go anywhere near abortion centres. They're maligned left, right and centre.
Do you get trouble from the charity commissions and official recognising you and stuff, and these organisations?
Pro-life work is most certainly not considered charitable from the charity commission's perspective. So yes, that can be quite difficult to actually get registered as a charity. But like I say, it's maligned so much, and it's so hard to actually reach these women. And yet, any woman wanting abortion pills, they only have to make a phone call. They don't even have to speak to a doctor, let alone see one. So they just
you have to explain to the chemist, though, don't you? I mean, you can just get them off a chemist now, but they have to come and talk to you, don't they, in a room? And
the abortion pill, no, you don't have to physically talk to anyone. You can just make a phone call and they're sent out to you. Since COVID, we've had abortion pills brought in, supposedly because of COVID, but it was never rescinded, so now it's permanent. And many, many women, teenagers, end up having abortions at home alone. And from the stories I hear from these women, it's absolutely horrific. They're going through abortions, being told it's just a blob of tissue, and yet they look down in the toilet bowl or in their bed, and what they see is a completely different story. They will say to me, "I saw a baby." And what are they supposed to do with that afterwards?
Well, from a pill, that's serious. That's not a morning after pill. That's obviously.
Hey, look at this. I mean, I'm not joking. I just thought I'd check. Can we buy the morning after pill online very easily?
But that can't be about the morning after pill.
No,
what
it's
you're
not.
talking
It's even
about.
more. I mean, just to get an abortion pill up to 10 weeks, you can call BPAS.
But I mean,
and
this one
order
is
that's a more serious pill.
This pharmacist, I'm not having to go at them specifically, so I won't name them out. But if you put, and this is to buy an abortion pill, if you put in the code WINTER10, you get a 10% discount.
Oh my goodness,
I mean,
we are
buy
lost,
5
aren't
get
we?
1 free.
I mean, and also I'll get another £10 off if I order in the next 17 hours.
It's almost worth getting pregnant.
I mean, the reality is. Let's have a look. I'm just going to read this out to you. Complete a free 2-minute consultation, choose your treatment, and it will be delivered to your door the following day.
That's horrific.
And it'll be all AI if that one isn't already.
I think abortion is one of the greatest examples.
I'll tell you what we'll do. I'll
marketing.
attempt to just lie to them and see if we can get this thing.
See if we can get some delivered.
I mean, it's so easy to lie over the phone, and that's, I think, actually been a big concern in the grooming gang scandals, is that why didn't all these abortion providers and sexual health clinics realise that all these kids were ordering contraceptives and abortion pills? Well, it's because you can now do it over the phone, say you're over 16.
It'll be on Deliveroo soon, won't it?
Right.
With your pizza.
So we've become so lax, haven't we, about our standards in terms of...
About everything, yeah.
About everything. About literally everything.
I mean,
but especially when it comes to...
Democracy, for a start. I mean, look what that's going on with these councils.
Or something.
Yeah, are we going to lose these elections? Oh, well, let's just cancel them and make up some ridiculous reason why we're going to cancel them.
But Isabel, we were, obviously in the news this week, the leaked memo from the Home Office has shown that the government think that 2-tier policing claims are extremist and far-right myths. But we've heard your story, and clearly you've been treated pretty unfairly in comparison to shoplifters who seem to get away with anything. But there's been a bit of a trend, hasn't there, against pro-lifers? Can you speak to other cases that are coming up that we should keep an eye on?
Very much so. I mean, Adam Smith Connor has had, a reasonable amount of publicity, and people, I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with his story.
Who is that? Who's that now?
So Adam Smith Connor, over 20 years ago, he paid for his son to be aborted, and he deeply regrets that now. And similar to myself, he silently prayed near an abortion centre. He was particularly praying for his...
I think we've met that bloke, haven't we?
Very likely, yeah. Former army veteran.
This is crazy, right? I'm sorry to keep interrupting you, but as I go through this survey of my medical situation, if I click the wrong answer, it says you are ineligible for answer. So I can change the answer.
Just go back.
Right, so all I've done is just click through, going yes, no, yes.
What is the eligibility criteria, Andre?
Well,
You've got to be a woman. That's a good start.
Well, there we go. I have just been approved for the morning after pill by just going through an online survey.
Back of the net.
Clicking whatever it was that they said. Here it is. There we go. one treatment, 20. I'm not going to actually buy it because it's a waste of resources. But there we go. I've been, and what was amazing about it was I didn't know the answers to the questions, but if I clicked the wrong answer, it told me that was the wrong answer and what the right answer was. Now, officially, they say that a genuine pharmacist has approved me.
Yeah,
that is not true.
That's crazy. And do you know what?
Sorry to interrupt, by the way, everyone.
Yeah.
I'm just stunned by this fact.
Yeah. Well, there's pushes. Obviously, it's incredibly liberal just now. You can get it up to 10 weeks over the phone. You can get it up to 24 weeks for any reason at all, basically. And there's pushes already to have it decriminalised all the way up to birth.
That's filth.
But babies survive after much less than that.
Yeah.
So they could be actually aborted and still be alive when they're out.
Yeah,
which
so
is horrendous.
right now you can be aborted up to birth for some reasons, including if you have a disability.
Yes.
So there's certain criteria which you can meet that would.
But that doesn't mean you won't enjoy life.
Well, exactly, and it includes, Down syndrome, clubfoot, cleft lip, which can be solved very easily by surgery. No, it's really horrific. But even though we still have the most extreme abortion laws in Europe, almost, people are still campaigning to bring all the way up to birth. In Scotland, there's a review of the abortion law happening right now, and that's very much on the table.
What about this idea of having an abortion after the thing's been born that some crazy nutters are up for? I mean, that's just murder.
Yeah,
it's murder.
exactly.
I remember the Omar bomb. They blew up someone with a kid or twins in, and that was murder. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But it's consistent with that way of thinking. Once you devalue one human life, how can you say that another human life is worthy?
So
if you're
true.
saying that someone should be aborted right up until birth,
Couldn't agree more.
Afterwards, I mean, we're so conscious about disability awareness in our workplaces and things like that nowadays. But like Lois is saying,
Isabel, I'm very sorry, we're going to have to cut you off. We could have talked to you for absolutely ages, but the press preview is coming up. That's Isabel Vaughan Spruce, I think.
Oh, your abortion pills have arrived. He's outside.
I can't believe that. I can't
Brilliant
believe
service.
that.
Great
I mean,
service.
it just took me 2 minutes. We'll be back in a couple of moments with the press preview.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yes, this is the press preview with Andre Walker and Asher Gould, and our guest co-hosts are Lois McClatchy-Miller and Phil Dave. Well, I guess we just get on with it then. Asher,
Let's
what's
start
first
with
page?
Don't forget Mike Graham coming up. There he is with his crunchy nut cornflakes
Deeply
today.
unpleasant man.
Beautiful man.
Deeply unpleasant.
Well, but beautiful. The Daily Star. Ooh, our Daily Star. Armageddon out of here. And apparently on the 22nd of December 2032, so you've got time to make arrangements, a 100-metre wide asteroid could hit Britain. It's definitely at 5:25, so set your alarm clocks on the 22nd of 2032. So we need to possibly send someone like Bruce Willis up to divert it. Are you worried about an asteroid? We should be. I mean, there's loads of these.
Don't you think, though, that the problem with this is that the precision that they've gone for with at precisely 5:25 a.m. on December 22nd, 2032, and yet they've put very clearly in this headline, asteroid could.
I know. But it's true, they are.
Yeah. So they've decided sort of the second and third line, not that I'm suggesting for a second I don't trust the Daily Star, but the second and third line they've
normally
gone
comes
for precision,
true, what they say.
and the first line is a caveat.
Best of both worlds.
But look, everybody knows that in journalism the best word is could.
Yeah.
You know, Britain could be killed by outbreak of super syphilis if we leave
with this astronomy. They are normally exact to the second, but they can never predict where these things are going to hit. I don't know. So what's going on?
It would be Britain, though, wouldn't it? I mean, we just deserve it at this point.
Might as well.
Mind you, they are trying to pacify us in some way because apparently they've got a special offer on comfort.
Yeah, that's right. It's $2.35 instead of the usual $4.75 if you take your club card.
Oh, can I tell you, I hate Tesco. I hate Tesco.
Well, they speak very highly of you.
If you forget your club card, right, then you go in, you can't buy anything because you think I'm not paying an extra £2 for every item. I'll tell you one thing.
Just carry it on your phone.
Have it on your phone.
Yeah, well, I'll do that now. Okay, but anyway, can I tell you one thing about Tesco, which I think's funny?
I think you're gonna.
I got a phone call once and they said, "Hello, this is Tesco Club Card. We noticed that you're no longer buying wine from our shop. Can you please tell us?"
It was a big account, though, wasn't it?
Can you please tell us?
It was a major
Please tell us what we've
So
done wrong.
you're the reason why Tesco's cut jobs.
He said, "What we've done wrong to lose your
They
business."
stopped stocking Blue Nun.
And I thought, this is dreadful. This is dreadful,
That is a
isn't
bit
it?
of an indictment,
When Tesco's phone you to ask you why you're no longer
You know
buying,
you've got a problem
Yeah,
then.
you've got a major issue.
Wow.
Major issue.
An end of midlife crisis, because that's what happens to blokes in their midlife. They buy a pink Cadillac and blue sunglasses.
Right, I've had people criticising me for saying a friend of mine because I don't want to anonymise the story. Well, with that in mind, I went to university with a guy called Matt Smith, right? And his dad, when he got to the
Which is basically like saying a friend of mine.
when he got to the age of 50, he bought himself a Harley Davidson. Bought this thing, cost him about 20 grand, and the guy in the dealership went, "Right, well, do you want to ride it home?" And he went, no, I can't ride a motorbike. It's far too dangerous. And they went, well, why have you bought a Harley Davidson? He said, just like get it out on the Sunday and rev it up on the drive. And the bloke was like, that is the most pathetic.
Get it home, though.
He had to send a delivery truck to get it home.
Oh, my goodness.
That is embarrassing.
That's bad.
No, you're in midlife. I'm being deadly serious when I say this. I've never understood why people say, because often midlife people are accused of being midlife in their 50s, right? But I mean, like that's
assuming they get to 100.
That's basically like saying you're guaranteed to get to 100.
That's three-quarter life, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, for like the average.
I'll tell you what. The great thing is, though, normally if you make it to 21, you'll make it to 40. Do you know that the statistic of people who die between the age of 21 and 40 is virtually zero? So basically,
Tell Amy Winehouse that.
if you've, well, I'm not saying it is zero.
Jim Morrison.
Also, Amy Winehouse.
Oh, of course.
Amy
It's
Winehouse.
different for rock and roll stars.
Amy Winehouse's blood had a street value, right? I mean, I'm not surprised. I mean,
Yeah, it's 5 a.m. Keep it light. Mike's listening.
how can you keep it light with Mike Graham? Anyway, okay.
No, it's all right. No, look, he's looking angry through the window. No,
That's his usual face. Okay, right. What's the next
Right,
one?
the next one is everyone's favourite, the metro.co.uk, and it's a nation of shoplifters. The report that comes out saying record thefts, nearly 500,000 offences in a year, as staff warned against challenging shameless raiders.
I'm not being funny, but that pose by David Beckham on the front page is just strange, isn't it? Like it's.
He's lifted his shirt up there. You see,
No, I mean next to it.
the one,
He
yeah,
looks like he's been nicked.
He's doing lunges. He's lunging.
What is? Yeah. So 25% shoplifting's increased by 25%. I'm not suggesting that you do it, but people genuinely just don't seem to pay anymore. It seems like paying's optional. It really frustrates me.
Well, it is optional because
This
no
is
one will
outrageous,
stop you
though.
anymore.
But do you see, it's almost 500,000 shoplifting offences were logged by police in a year. In the most, the most on record.
But that's the only logged
warnings
ones.
that they
There's
have
loads
spiralled.
that they don't even log the one.
Yeah.
They don't report it.
But 500,000 in a year.
But
That's
it's probably
outrageous.
2 million, isn't it? Because
I've said this before on the show, but I went through Reading Station and I saw a couple nicking loads of stuff from one of the shops, and I just thought, if I say anything, all that'll happen is I'll get into trouble in some way, because these people will just go, oh, he tried to grope me or something like that, and the police will be on their side. As far as I'm concerned, let them away with it.
Do you know what, actually, speaking of like sort of nicking and stations and stuff like this, there's so much shoplifting, but what really irritates me is the number of people who barge past barriers. I'm talking about this. I mean, if you use the London
there's
Underground...
about 50 security stood there
if you
doing
use
nothing.
about the London Underground, then you'll know what I'm talking about. They're basically, at National Rail, it's dead easy. You know, they just don't buy a ticket, they don't get checked. But on the London Underground, you have barriers that you have to go through, and you have to pay to get in. You either tap your
Well, they're the
card...
same. All stations across the country, they're like that now.
What I do,
Just
so
barriers.
what I do is,
Sometimes there's
if
nothing
I
there.
see someone who's trying to follow me behind, if I've opened the barriers, because I always pay my way, and if I see someone trying to follow, I actually, more often than not, I carry an umbrella, and I basically just push them back with the umbrella now.
You stab them with the umbrella.
You attack them with the umbrella.
Attack, I sort of like prod them, you know, like a bit like sort of like herding sheep.
Yeah, like that guy who was killed on London Bridge in the 80s.
Yeah,
I don't
Waterloo
think
Bridge.
that's quite a fair comparison.
Waterloo Bridge, yeah, with the ricin. That was a ricin gun in an umbrella.
But I have to say,
KGB.
it frustrates me. Lots of people at major train stations will see this as well. But when I go through Waterloo to come here, basically, if I lose my ticket, then that bloke is going to absolutely go mad. If somebody just jumps through the barrier, then and just literally pushes the barrier open and goes through, nobody cares.
No, doesn't say
Those people are there to harass legitimate passengers who've made a mistake.
Exactly.
That's why
couldn't agree
security
more.
guards are in shops to put off people who are thinking of becoming a shoplifter, not the actual ones who do nick the loads of stuff. They can just carry on as usual.
And what really annoys me is that sort of we live in a day and age where, unfortunately, there's so many people who just sort of say, oh, well, we've lost the war on that now, so let's just let it be. So this is like the argument surrounding the war on drugs. They say, well, we've lost the war on drugs now, so let's just let it... What are we going to do? We're going to say we've lost the war on shoplifting and just carry on letting people nick it and like ruin people's
shops, I mean, I know New York, a lot of the shops are shut down, and here, I remember the guy in the co-op was saying it's, you know, ridiculous now what co-op shops are losing.
They're going to have to go back to Mr. Arkwright with, you know, the open all hours, everything behind the counter.
Which is good, isn't it? Nice local shop on the corner.
I like the idea of that.
They've all become houses now.
Mind you, I've got to be honest with you. I was walking down my local high street and a new butcher's opened up. Apparently it's a new old butcher. He'd previously worked there. The guy'd retired and it closed down for a couple of years. But he'd reopened. And do you know what?
They've changed the stock.
Yeah. I'll tell you what struck me. You could go in, and I said, the bloke said, what do you want? And I said, I don't know what I want. And he went, well, OK, what do you fancy? And you know what, there was that personal interaction.
Yeah.
He knew what he was talking about. He was able to recommend stuff, rather than what happens with, like, you know, your Asda delivery. I'm the only person in Ascot who gets an Asda delivery, but OK.
That's why he has to have it delivered, especially brought in.
No, I have to have it delivered in the hours of darkness, right? So nobody knows. I used to live in Sunningdale and be the only person that had.
So did it work as a meaty personal service?
Yeah,
Did he
it
buy
did
a
actually.
bit of slab of his meat?
It did actually, because and I think that it's cut down food waste as well. Because even though it's a bit more expensive, because you go when you need the stuff, you don't end up filling your fridge full of all this junk that you never use.
So what did you end up buying off the guy?
I bought some fillet steak and haggis.
Ooh, good choice.
Good choice. And it was from haggis from the Balmoral Estates as well.
Nice.
Oh yeah, you stunk out the studio.
No.
Yeah.
Do you remember that guy? That guy.
And that was the day after.
No, that guy Carl. I was willing to eat some haggis on air, right? It was almost like that moment from Alan Partridge. I brought in some haggis. He microwaved it for 15 minutes. It was like a piece of coal. It literally, I put it in my mouth and just went, it was sheep-based napalm. It was unbelievable. 15 minutes in the microwave. That's like boiling for 18 hours.
Anything goes into the microwave for 15 minutes.
Oh my God. I'll tell you what, you went, I want to make sure it's thoroughly cooked. Thoroughly cooked. It's already cooked.
Molten haggis.
All you do is warm it up. No, it did. Bits of it was stuck to my mouth. It was lamb napalm. It was lamb napalm.
Nice.
Right, last story in the Metro. 60 seconds with Trevor Nelson. I don't know if that's a prize. That's all it says. So.
I thought his radio shows were longer than that.
I was going to make a rude joke, but I've just realised because it's early breakfast, we can't do that joke, can we?
Mike's still looking. The Daily Express. We need people who believe in Brexit, and that's Nigel Farage. He's vowed to deliver the Brexit 17.4 million people voted for if he becomes Prime Minister, because it has been stifled and not allowed by this political class and civil service. I mean,
what they've done now is effectively they've given us the worst of all worlds quite deliberately, because with regulatory alignment they've made sure that we're having all of the EU regulations plus our own regulations. And when people go, Brexit's delivered nothing, I think what Brexit gives you the opportunity to do is rule yourself, which is great. I think the one thing that Brexit has done, which I think is marvellous, it has exposed how weak our politicians are and how bad Westminster is at running a country.
That's primarily why they didn't want Brexit, because that way they could always blame the bureaucrats in Brussels, instead of actually saying, do you know what, it's because we're rubbish that we just can't govern.
I used to work in Brussels, and it's fair to say they turned round and said, the Europeans, they said, listen, we wanted everybody to have standardised kilograms and grams, and all you had to do was put it the same size as pounds and ounces or bigger. They said the British civil servants came up with this idea of locking people up who offered something in pounds and ounces. Yeah, sure. So all you had to do was go, a pound is X number of grams, and it would have been completely fine.
That's
but
crazy.
then they're like, also they claimed a pint of champagne was made illegal by the EU, which wasn't. They used to sell champagne in pint bottles, and it's like all you had to do was put the number of millilitres that a pint was, and it was perfectly legal. But we decided you've got to get rid of it. Which is madness.
I mean, as bad as it all has shaken out, I'm still so grateful to Brexit. Whenever I look at what's happening in Brussels right now, they've gone absolutely nuts. I mean, they were always a little bit nuts. Well, have you seen this Digital Services Act thing, DSA? No. So they're clamping, as America gets more free with their speech, they're clamping down on social media like there's no tomorrow. Yes. They basically want nobody to be able to.
They call it disinformation, and there's a war. And it comes from the UN as well, doesn't it? It's basically just trying to control us. Very sinister.
It's also beyond their reach. It's stuff that Europeans have been able to see, which can be tweeted from America, where they have free speech, or tweeted from Australia or South Africa.
But America will sanction them if they come down against big American social media, especially with Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and what's his name?
Jeff Bezos?
Yeah, Jeff Bezos. He owns Amazon. And Elon Musk, and they're all sitting behind. They were in front of
Zuckerberg as well.
Yeah, Zuckerberg, yeah.
It is tricky, though, because a lot of those companies
Zuckerberg looks like that bloke off Star Trek.
Yeah, he does.
You know, the robots?
I don't quite know what's happened.
You mean Commander Data?
Yes.
Do you know what? For someone who's got so much money, he hasn't aged recently.
But don't you think the thing with him...
the worry about how crap the metaverse...
Steve Jobs was of genius, Bill Gates as well. But, I mean, what's his name, Zuckerberg? He just sort of lucked out in a project at Harvard. And, you know what I mean? He just made this thing, and he's not really a genius like the others.
The metaverse has a regular usership of 12, doesn't it?
I mean, he's not Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates or Steve Jobs, is he? He's just a kid from university.
True. I mean, he's certainly rich enough, but...
I'll tell you one thing. I was walking through Westminster yesterday, and there was a protest to rejoin the European Union, and someone had a Ukrainian flag up, and I thought, well, whatever you think about the EU and whatever you think about Ukraine, if Britain was still a member of the EU, Ukraine wouldn't exist. It's just a fact that it's only because an independent Britain was able to move quickly that in those
Boris Johnson.
Yeah, exactly. In that vital first week. Because otherwise, had Zelensky not been able to act within the first couple of days, Ukraine would have been overrun. And ultimately, whether you like it or not, and some people think Ukraine's bad, some people are against Zelensky. Either way, if you think that Britain's membership of the EU was good for Ukraine, you are wholly wrong and demonstrably wrong.
Yeah.
It was the same with the COVID vaccination.
COVID vaccination. Whatever you think about vaccinating people for COVID, Keir Starmer wants us to rejoin the EU so we could join their terrible vaccine programme.
Crazy.
Daily Express. No survivors from plane crash, and horror above Washington.
Awful.
So that's horrendous. Trump saying it's possibly to do with DEI and not getting... and we have heard it's understaffed there. And, if you're not getting the best people for the job, we saw what happened with the Secret Service, although they managed managed to just...
I couldn't believe...
He just lost a bit of his ear, so actually...
I couldn't believe this, Phil, when you were reading... when Donald Trump was reading out the sort of people that were going to be allowed to be air traffic controllers under Biden. It said we shouldn't discriminate against people who have severe... What was it? Severe intellectual limitations. Basically, stupid.
Oh my goodness.
I think it's very simple. This diversity nonsense has got to stop because I think that anyone can be in favour of diversity, but not when it's to the detriment of people's safety.
Well, not for jobs.
Lives.
It should always be the best person for the job, even if it's not about security.
So if people are that obsessed with it,
it's racist in itself, these diversity.
Well, that's it. Positive discrimination.
It's just racist.
It's just a very jolly way of saying discrimination. That's all it is. Yeah. You know, you shove the word positive in front. It's a bit like sort of saying positively murdering.
Yeah.
You know, it's not positive.
It's like reverse snobbery.
It's absolute nonsense.
The same
so,
thing.
but in terms of diversity, like, if this is, and we've got to be very careful, if this is the reason why this horrendous crash has happened, well then, as far as I'm concerned, I think people really need to sort of start actually sort of bucking up their ideas and thinking, wow, okay, maybe this nonsense is actually putting people's lives at risk, and maybe we need to start reconsidering whether.
But
or not
also
this is
the
right
other thing we've seen a lot of politicians coming out saying, "Oh, we shouldn't talk like that," and actually, people like what Trump's doing is just talking like a sort of normal person, and they're saying, "Well, he's just shooting from the hip."
Do you know the best way around this is if people are genuinely that worried that those who are from certain minority backgrounds are not getting the opportunities to get certain jobs in this world, then what we need to have is some sort of blanket rule that says that CVs are blind. You just don't have a name or anything on them, and you say, right, this is candidate number, whatever the number is, this is what they've done. If you like them,
but
you can even interview them audio, can't you?
Let me just ask you this then: if we're talking about discrimination, positive discrimination, am I allowed to say there are too many black people in the Premier League?
You've gone too far now.
Because if what we're saying is we have to have everything in racial quotas, which, by the way, I think is demonstrably stupid.
Well,
at what point are we going to go the other way?
Well, there's actually no reflection of the genetic makeup of the UK. For starters.
Well, they never say there's not enough women bin men, do they? Or there's not enough women bricklayers. They never moan about that.
There aren't enough gays in media, right? I mean, like, you know what I mean? It's just, the theatre industry's really struggling.
Well, that's what's going out.
Could I buy a theatre company tomorrow and go, applications particularly welcome
from
white heterosexual men with limited personality, right?
Well, they are a minority now in London. They are a minority.
All you need to know, if above everything else, if you think that sort of there is some sort of positivity in discriminating, is Hitler thought he was positively discriminating.
That's right.
Just remember that.
That's right. Oh, I'll tell you.
And on that bombshell.
No, I'll tell you what. My favourite one. Yeah,
keep it light. It's breakfast.
Was when
Mike's looking angry
somebody
again.
turned round and said, I think it was Lee Jasper, who said, racism only exists when it's the majority oppressing the minority. So the minority can oppress the majority. And I said, but in that case, that would mean that apartheid South Africa was a non-racist country. Yeah. And they were like, maybe that doesn't work. Anyway, more on the pay-per-view after this.
Lee Jasper.
the UK. On DAB+. On your smart speaker. On your smart TV. And on your side. This is Talk.
Yes, this is the pay-per-view on Talk with Andre Walker, Asher Gould, Lois McCletchy-Miller and Phil Dave. Asher, what's the next paper then?
It's The Independent and another, the horror of 67 killed in plane and helicopter crash, no survivors. Rescuer recovered bodies from the Potomac River near Reagan National Airport, and Trump blames incident on Democrats and government. Well, he hasn't blamed it. He said it could be something to do with it. I mean, they're still investigating, but that was just one of his suggestions.
Before we talk to Lois, because you've got a bit of a bad story with this, let's just say,
well, a lucky story in a way.
Is that printout genuine? Because if it is, he's no longer orange.
He looks like
That's red.
He's an Oompa Loompa. Oompa Doompa Dippity Doo. Yeah, he looks like. He
He's
looks
celebrating
like
his win on the sunbed.
He does. That is not a sunbed. That is. I'll tell you what that is. He's using the same creosote that Ian Dale uses on his face. Right? Ian Dale's face is the colour of mahogany.
But his hair's looking more realistic, isn't it? Sorry, Lois.
No. He's
No, tell us your story, Lois.
Actually, what doesn't work for Donald Trump is that actually it's the eyebrows.
It's the high contrast.
Yeah, it's what he looks like. He looks like a negative.
Yes, that is exactly what it is.
He needs to turn the contrast down a bit. Yeah.
Exactly.
Anyway,
your hair should be darker
but Lois, your husband has been in Washington.
My goodness, my husband flew from the same airport on the same day, just a mere hour before.
On the same actual sort of airline and flight.
It could have been the same airline. He was from DC to Dallas, so I'm not sure where this plane was going. But
it's amazing, isn't it? Because obviously your husband landed without incident, no problem at all.
Well, have you had a message from him confirming that? Oh,
but it's just the way that that life can be fragile. Problem is with aviation, if it goes wrong, it goes wrong. I know that sounds like a stupid thing, but it's. I mean, you are much more likely to be killed on the drive to the airport than you are.
Although you can't pull over onto the hard shoulder, can you? That's the thing.
I think the problem is with the plane crash, and I don't want to go too far this out, but it's uniquely traumatic, isn't it? The idea of dying in a plane crash.
Yeah, and it's just something we put so much trust in, isn't it? I mean, the older generation are maybe a bit more sceptical about aircrafts, but I've hopped on and off of planes without a second thought. I didn't think a little bit about getting.
Well, we haven't had it in this country since I think Leicester and around the M1. There was a crash so that's billions of seats.
I do think the way that people need to look at it is, statistically speaking, you are pretty safe in the air.
You're much more likely to get killed by lightning.
And not only that, I'd also think of all of the airline crew who this is their daily job.
Yeah, that's right.
And day in, day out. And, thank God most of them are okay.
One caveat I'd put is the little planes and helicopters, they're a lot more dangerous. I mean, everyone knows people.
I'll tell you one thing you've got to be careful of with planes, and the most...
They've got propellers, don't go on them.
The most regular injury that people get from planes is turbulence. I'll tell you, if you ain't got your seatbelt on, it really goes. You can really hurt yourself. That is the vast majority of people will be just sat down. They'll have taken their seatbelt off.
Can kill you. Can kill you.
It can, because if you go into a big pocket of air, you can be flung up onto the ceiling.
Be safe.
Right, Russell, another last bit on The Independent. Russell Brand, BBC apologises to staff over handling of complaints about presenter. Well, that's an old BBC story. They never handle complaints properly until...
The BBC haven't had a presenter arrested for a couple of weeks, have they?
No, not in 2025.
Oh, they're doing well, aren't they?
Yeah, they've done well. They've got the whole 3 weeks.
Can we not beat about the bush here? What a fat lot of good that's going to do. For goodness sake, right? So the BBC apologises to staff over Brand. Do me a favour.
Sorry, this front page of the Mirror is genius.
Token gesture.
They've had 2 Jags for John Prescott's funeral.
Yeah, family in the Mirror. Family in 2 Jags funeral tribute to the true Labour hero. Remember, he was called Fatty 2 Jags because he had 2 Jags. I think he had one of his own, and then there was the ministerial Jag.
I never met him, but somebody told me that he was a deeply unpleasant man.
Oh, I could kind of imagine
that. I could well believe that. Not that I want to speak ill of the dead.
No.
But I might point out as well.
You can make a major contribution to life and also be unpleasant. I mean, it's...
Don't you think I'm living proof? proof of that. But look,
Talking of which, Mike Graham's a breakfast show.
I would suggest that sort of it's not terribly likely that if one
pulling back the curtain.
If one was going to
Mike
go
Graham.
to a funeral and you've sort of got the hearse, then it is quite normal to have another car driving the
I'm
mourners
sure it
behind.
wasn't deliberate.
So I think that they are just sort of having a bit of a poke of fun here at Prescott's expense. The fact that sort of obviously it is 2 Jags, well, clearly it's going to be 2 vehicles going for the funeral.
All right, don't ruin it.
I'm just saying.
But one of them's the hearse, isn't it? And one's
Also, I'm not being funny. Those are the only 2 Jaguars in Hull.
Yeah, probably imported them from down south.
Do you remember his croquet incident? So I was chatting to a photographer.
Oh yeah, he was playing in the checkers, not checkers, the other one.
Whichever one it was. I was chatting to the photographer who said, do you know what? They were all talking about whether Prescott would get the nuclear codes whilst Blair was on holiday. And so he said, I decided to go to his official residence, wherever it was, somewhere in the home counties. And he said, I'd got the zoom lens out and there was Prescott playing croquet. That is just absolute.
That's social mobility for you, isn't it?
Absolute genius.
You know,
like
I
champagne socialist.
I mean, do you know his reason for saying that he played croquet was it was just left by the previous occupants of the building,
Well,
and he
why
thought,
not?
that's quite interesting. Let's have a go.
Yeah.
John is John.
It's true. It's funny. I mean, not that I'm sure not many are supportive of his politics, but he did kind of represent a type of politician that you don't really get anymore. Just kind of like a kind of legendary, kind of funny, been there for ages.
It was old Labour as well.
Yeah,
It was that old type of Labour
exactly.
that used to be what Labour was.
I also think that bloke, do you know the mulleted farmer that threw an egg at him? I think he was right to punch him.
Yeah. Which politician would
Again,
today
not
throw
that
a
we
punch?
encourage that.
No.
It was a reflex action, reasonable force,
Mind
and
you,
it was a lovely little snapping punch.
I don't know if I should mention this because he's the boss of the company. But if you remember that
Probably
parliamentary hearing when somebody had tried to attack Rupert Murdoch and they had that bloke, didn't he? He tried to.
Oh yeah.
He tried to.
Throwing
That
it
was
back.
Wendy Deng saved
Yeah,
him.
Wendy.
She got slapped the guy.
I think John, was it Tom Watson at the end of it said, your wife's got a decent right hook.
You know, I mean, I love that on the front page of the Mirror here, they say fury at Trump's new low, shameful. And they say Donald Trump has been slammed after he tried to blame diversity hiring for America's deadliest air tragedy since 2001. Well, I think you find, Mirror, that they need to sort of play a bit of catch-up here because, to be honest, I think more people are going to be annoyed if indeed it is because of diversity.
But you have an advert. You have an advert that's saying applications for people to be air traffic controls are particularly welcome from blind and deaf people. I mean, whatever way
I really
you look
hope
at
that's not the case.
No, he literally read out what they were saying. Now, look, at the end of the day, if you want to find jobs for people who are blind or deaf in the Department for Transport, fine.
Yeah.
But I mean, the idea that blind people are underrepresented within air traffic control, well, one would hope
Well,
so.
it's not fine anyway. It should be all just meritocracy. And also, this is a lies. He hasn't blamed it on that. He said it's possibly that, but of course, in the spin, it becomes.
Yeah.
But actually, what he's talking about there is, and where he will be right, is that the Civil Aviation Authority in America or whatever,
The FAA, isn't it?
Yeah, FAA, have prioritised diversity hires at the air traffic control rather than the people who are best for the job.
Ergo, you won't have the best people in the job.
Yeah.
Marianne Faithfull, swinging 60s icon, has died at 78. She really was a swinging 60s icon, wasn't she? Along with Twiggy and what's his name, the photographer, Mick Jagger. Yeah, she dated a lot of rock and roll stars. Great. She was,
hang on, wasn't Twiggy the bloke from the royal family, played by Onslow?
Yeah, that's what she became in the future. Yeah.
Sorry,
I didn't follow that at all.
Hang on. So Geoffrey Hughes, who was Onslow in Keeping Up Appearances, was in the royal family.
Played a character called Twiggy.
Oh, sorry, his character was called. Okay, sorry.
No, he didn't play Twiggy.
I was going to say. I've never confused. I've never confused the two of those.
Not even Paul Whitehouse could pull off a Twiggy, could he?
I reckon he could.
And he can pull off
I
anything.
reckon he could actually.
Great
Looks
choice.
a bit like
I
him.
think we need to go to the break, and after that, we're going to be unfortunately
Good idea.
going through the Guardian. We'll be back with the press preview in a moment.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yes, this is the press preview with Andre Walker and Asher Gould, and joining us as our guest co-host today are Lois McClatchy-Miller and Phil Dave. By the way, somebody sent in a spirited defence of John Prescott, and I think we have to apologise to John now because of this. It's Nikki in Slough who says, Andre, I served Prescott and his staff from Dorneywood lunch that day at the Jolly Woodman pub. He was very charming. He came in one jag and his wife came in another. It was the staff's annual treat. And you know what? The reality is...
Sorry, the staff's annual treat at that
was
pub
to play
was
cricket.
To see... Oh, I see. I thought
was
you
to
meant
play croquet
and
have a pub lunch.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry.
And
I thought you meant that it was the annual treat for the staff at the pub to welcome the Prescotts for lunch.
Right.
But anyway.
I was going to say,
Well, that would be a
I wonder why
treat,
they're in separate cars. Reminds you of Keir Starmer and his wife, don't it?
Well, either that or it might be like the royal family. They never travel
If you've got
together.
two jugs, you might as well use them.
Yeah.
Yeah, with Keir Starmer, they might have to demolish the wall in
Mind
between
you,
them and his
actually,
wife's
having
bed.
said that, if
It's probably Lord
if-
Ali's jug.
No, but you know what? To be fair, if Lord Prescott was still like in power or what have you, he would never have been able to sort of do that now under Ed Miliband. Could you imagine driving two Jags? He'd be accused
Yeah, that's
of
right.
polluting
I
the
think he
place.
would have made a great
would've-
prime minister, possibly, like Trump, wouldn't he? He would have just said what he thinks.
Miliband would have forced him to put Pauline on the roof rack, just strap her to the roof. My wife's hair. Do you remember? It was about the haircut, wasn't it? He claimed that her perm would be blown in the wind of Bournemouth, and that's why she had to take the Jag 100 yards up the road.
Yeah, I feel like I'm not qualified to comment on that.
He once said, when Blair came to power, and they said they were going to take a pay cut as cabinet ministers, he said, it's all right for you, Tony. Your wife earns 100 grand a year, whereas my wife just spends 100 grand.
Yeah, she made a lot more than 100 grand a year, did Cherry Blair.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's true.
The Guardian, women face an epidemic of violence. Let's see what it says here. An epidemic of violence against women and girls in the UK is getting, well, don't ask Jess Phillips to sort it out, is getting worse despite years of government promises and strategies. A highly critical report from Whitehall's spending watchdog has warned 4 years after a major government response to violence against women and girls was launched in the wake of the murders of Sabina Nessa and Sarah Everard. But look at these rape gang things and how they're trying to brush it under the carpet and stop any investigations. What an utter
They've also
disgrace.
forgotten what a woman is in the meantime, so how are they going to solve that?
This is quite cunning from The Guardian because the wording there is very specific. So you see here it says, despite years of government promises and strategies. So what they're basically doing is they're trying to deflect that it's nothing to do with 6 months of Labour.
Yes.
Right.
They're saying years of government strategy. So that's very
Well,
specific
that is also
wording.
true as well. The last government were useless, weren't
No,
they?
they absolutely were. But what I mean is that now, how much longer do we have to tolerate this government blaming the previous
Right,
government?
where's the accountability?
You know,
Also-
it's just enough already.
Also,
I want to
I-
see them get on with it. They're in power now.
I think this is really interesting because it's something, when we went to the Holocaust Educational Trust dinner, they were going on about refugees being welcome and whatever. So what do we think of Albrecht Weinberg, who's given back his equivalent of his MBE on the grounds that the Germans are being anti-immigration? I find this a bizarre situation because I can understand why a Holocaust survivor would want to have uncontrolled immigration for refugees, but at the same time,
A lot of them hate Jews.
the people that are coming over are, let's be
A lot of
honest,
them are anti-Semitic.
fairly anti-Semitic.
And that comes from Nazi times when the Mufti said he will do the final solution in the Arab world. This is who Mahmoud Abbas, the Palestinians' leader, is his hero. So it actually does directly come from
It is difficult
Nazism.
though, Phil. So forget the Holocaust and forget that angle. But let's
Never forget.
But let's just be clear that
It's probably not the words you want to hear not long after
there's
Holocaust Memorial Day,
always
but
there's always going to be a tension, isn't there, between when you bring people over from foreign countries, it's going to cause problems within the country that they come to, because look, at the end of the day, I mean, somebody said that it's a bit bad for me to say this, but, you know, Germany has apologised for the Holocaust by bringing in millions of people who hate Jews. I mean, let's just be blunt about it.
And hate their own citizens.
well,
of
as
the
I
West.
say, and hate the West anyway, don't they?
Yeah.
Look, I mean, I can understand completely when you've got someone who is a Holocaust survivor why they would be in favour of immigration.
Refugees, yeah.
I think most wouldn't be his view. They'd just pick out the one person who does have that view. I mean, you and me, we must have known Holocaust survivors, and they wouldn't agree with this bloke at all.
No, it's not. But what I was going to say, what I was going to ramp up to, is that it's a case of, I understand why they'd been in favour of immigration. You know, who wouldn't be, as long as it's in that country's best interest. And if you are actually sort of helping people who are genuinely fleeing from peril, then again, I would like to think most decent humans would understand that we've got to help people who are genuinely in need. But what I can't stand is the way these cretinous individuals who come over on boats or what have you, who basically use that as a masquerade to say, oh, we're fleeing persecution, therefore you can't send us back, please help us. And now we know that we're spending like £4 million a year on clothing for them or what have you. It's just revolting.
I'll tell you something. Let's just remind ourselves, Lois, that in recent years, there have been 3 occasions where people feared there would be a genocide. Those occasions were the Russian invasion of Ukraine, were basically was averted. The Azeri invasion of Nagorno-Karabakh, which, to be fair, Azerbaijan just didn't wipe out the Armenians in the way that they expected them to. And then the issue of Gaza, where what happened was much more targeted than just general. But had there been a genocide in any of those 3 occasions, we would not have had the space to take the refugees, because the hotels are full of economic migrants.
It is true, yeah, it's very difficult. And the refugee treaties that were drawn up internationally after World War II were designed for a very different situation. It was modelled after, you know, the crisis in Europe, and in numbers much smaller than what we have today coming in terms of people coming over to the country. And so it is set up for situations like that today. But I wanted to also throw open to, you know, Holocaust survivor.
Can I just say on that point, a different situation and a different world. It was very different.
And different rules. I mean, in the old days, you didn't go, oh, we can't kick him out, he's got a cat. You know what I mean? This is the exactly right. It's ridiculous.
I know.
Sorry, Phil. What were you going to?
Well, I was just going to ask. You know, the Holocaust Memorial Day was it last week or this week?
It's the 27th. It was on.
So it was this week, and there was a lot of coverage of. Well, I saw the Labour government's statement about mourning victims who were killed for being who they were.
Nothing about Jews,
them being
because they
Jewish.
lose that vote, you know, in certain areas. Angela Rayner, she didn't mention it, did she? Sky News didn't mention it.
It just kind of it opened up to such a broad category of people. And yes, there was people who were killed during the genocide that weren't Jewish, of course, but the vast majority were. But now it was
basically 6 million Jews and then 4 million others is the way it's described, which it doesn't really I don't think it matters per se what someone's background is. If anyone thinks it's acceptable to kill someone just because they don't happen to follow the sort of the image of an Aryan race, I think we can all agree that's abhorrent. But at the same time, when you actually start sort of getting people deliberately omitting the fact that these people primarily were Jewish, just because they don't want to upset someone. A classic example of that was, you may have seen ITV got into hot water this week because on their breakfast programme they managed to introduce a piece on Holocaust Memorial Day where the newsreader basically omitted the fact that the 6 million people who were killed, or the 1 million people who were killed at Auschwitz, were Jewish. Literally. That word was omitted.
And they've apologised since, so they've admitted it.
No, they have admitted.
Well,
so, absolutely. But even so, they then went on after omitting the word Jewish or Jews to then list every other minority.
But there's also another element to this which I think is important if you're interested in history. There are effectively 3 Holocausts, aren't there? There's the slave labour camps, there's the shooting in the forests and that sort of thing, and then there's the death camps, the Operation Reinhardt type thing. The reality is, when you're talking about the straight to the gas chamber, if you like, that is principally Jewish people. Now, when you're talking about, you know, the Belarusian massacre of 1943, which I think you could generally describe as part of the Holocaust, almost nobody was Jewish in that, but they weren't sent to gas chambers. Therefore, when you're talking about Auschwitz, when you're talking about Sobibor, Treblinka and Belzec, you are talking about Jewish people. principle.
Although most Jews weren't killed in concentration camps.
That is true.
But let us also be under no delusion that the Belarusian side of this was primarily because Belarus had expelled their Jews during the pogroms. That's primarily the reason why. There's hardly any Jews left in that part of the world.
That's a reasonable point.
Yeah,
basically.
that was the same in, I can't remember, there was another European. So look, we didn't kill any Jews, that's because you'd kicked them all out.
I'll tell you what we could do. We could go to a break now, so we've got a really good long segment to do the rest of the papers, because we've got the Times, the iPaper and the Telegraph coming up straight after this.
And the Mail.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
OK, this is the paper review with Andre Walker, Asher Gould, Lois McClatchy-Miller and Phil Dave. What have we got next?
We've got the Eye, and the main story is Gary Kemp. Tony Hadley painted me and Martin as bad guys. It was the other way around. So we're going to open a line for Tony Hadley to call in and have his right of reply.
Have you ever met Tony Hadley?
Yeah, I have. He used to come in quite a lot. He's a
really
lovely
nice
man.
chap.
Very tall.
Ridiculously tall.
Nice,
but everyone's tall.
And they recently used it in a Bold advert. They used the song Gold, and obviously not Tony Hadley singing, because he was furious that they, put his song through the mud.
They're probably all quite nice, but then they've just had... but I'll tell you what, I heard a brilliant story about Spandau Ballet, right? So they said that in the 80s, they were drinkers. They never did drugs or anything like that, but they were big drinkers. And they said the rider got to $2,000 per show, which was considered completely unacceptable. So he said, right, OK, we've got to go through this. And he said, right, so first of all, they went, what about gin? Oh, I like a gin and tonic, says one of them every now and again. Yeah, we'll leave the gin in. What about sherry? Right, no, what if we bring some girls back? They might want a bit of sherry or whatever.
Girls like sherry.
Then they go, cheese board. That all it ever does just sits there and stinks. They go, no, we'll leave the cheese board, because what if we get a bit hungry, right? And then they go, 3 cases of Stella. Well, we need that, because we always drink Stella. And then in the end, they deleted 2 bottles of lime cordial from his rider. And that was the extent.
Don't need that, it's unnecessary exuberance.
That was the extent of the changes they made.
Tightening the belt.
No wonder they made their love on Wasteland.
And here we go. We're going to be treated from home now. It's Wes Streeting's new idea. Treat patients at home to prevent NHS hospital bed blocking.
Hang on a second.
Health bosses.
Isn't that what used to happen with the night call out of GP?
Yeah, they don't like going to people's houses with a little case anymore. I mean, now the world's gone mad. It's all through the looking glass.
I don't know how I feel about this. I can see a benefit to people being allowed to stay home.
Yeah, it's okay.
And people do actually technically recover better in their own homes.
Yeah, I know, but they won't even go to homes if you need them. If you need the doctors, how are they going to sort this out?
Well,
you can't even got enough ambulances.
I'll tell you what they'll do.
Outside.
They'll do what they always do. They'll do a financial deal with the BMA to make the terms and conditions of GPs even more outrageous than it is at the moment. Yeah. Because outrageous is what it is. I mean, I've railed about this before, but we have our most seasoned doctors out in the community doling out penicillin, and then we've got the junior doctors in the hospitals where you need the most experienced doctors. And the reason is because doctors expect, after all their years of training and whatever, to get a cushy number in the community, and they expect the NHS to give them that cushy number.
Come now, Andre. You're not seriously telling me you're putting the British Medical Association and the word outrageous in the same sentence?
I'll tell you my favourite thing. Whenever I debate the BMA, I always go, "You're very against the private sector's involvement in the NHS, aren't you?" And they go, "Yes." And you go, "Is it true that all GPs are private sector healthcare providers because they're self-employed?" And they go, "Well, I mean, that doesn't count." I had one guy from the BMA who tried to advance the theory that you were a public sector worker because you were contracted in outside consultants as a GP. And I went, "I'm sorry, that does not count as public." But it's amazing. The BMA never takes the TV in order to become employees of the NHS. That's the one bit of the private healthcare industry, which, by the way, is the largest bit in the UK, that they don't have a problem with.
Yeah.
Absolute hypocrites, BMA.
And you're fired P45 time for Lord Sugar and The Apprentice, so it seems that he might have been fired. He's just gone too far. Who would you have next on The Apprentice as the boss? What about Theo Paphitis?
What about
Bring Back Trump?
Julia Hartley-Brewer?
I don't think he's got the time.
Julia Hartley-Brewer would be fine.
Who could we have as a big businessman? Philip Ullman.
Charlie Mullins.
Charlie Mullins.
Yeah, he should do. Everyone would be fired.
And if ever Charlie Mullins is unavailable, Rod Stewart can fill in.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he's had his face built into a Rod Stewart replica.
Right, the Daily
as much as he's had his hair built.
Yeah, well, that's right.
The Daily Telegraph, so I need my glasses out. 10th of farmland axed for net zero. Well, here we go. This is why they're nicking the farms. Solar farms and tree planting set to replace food production and fresh flow to rural life. So it's all linked, isn't it?
I was
With
going
Bill
to say,
Gates, BlackRock, they're trying to get the land off the farms.
Exactly. I was going to say, doesn't the truth come out now as the real reasons why they're changing the tax and inheritance laws around farming? But anyway.
It says swathes of countryside are on course to be switched to solar farms, tree planting and improving habitats for birds, insects and fish. And also they'll build houses on it, won't they? Because we're taking in 1 million people a year.
So where are we going to produce our food?
Life.
We've always
just buy it from Ukraine, which should be BlackRock.
Here's a wacky idea. How about improving lives of people who actually pay taxes in this country? There's a thought for you.
Ridiculous.
Forget the fish. They don't pay taxes, as far as I know.
No.
I've got to be honest with you. I love a bit of fish. I love a bit
to eat, not to have it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, a plentiful supply of trout.
I was going to say, I like fish with sushi, not to give them a tax break.
Fish with sushi, you communist. Well, I like it in batter with chips.
That was a very bougie answer.
I do like fish and chips.
By the way, on the issue of immigration, wasn't it Jewish immigrants who brought in fish and chips? That is a positive.
Portuguese EastEnders.
Contributing to society.
That is a positive thing.
And may I just say, you're welcome.
Right, Brexit 5 years on. Nigel Farage, the job isn't finished yet, and Dave Frost leaving was our liberation, although we haven't really had it yet. So, 5 years on and we still haven't.
I look forward to the liberation.
I know.
I think the good thing about Brexit is that, and I said this earlier, it's highlighted the weakness of British politicians, because you've got to admit the problem before you solve the problem. And now that we know how hopeless our MPs and how hopeless our members of the House of Lords and how hopeless our government ministers are, we can start to drive up the standards.
That's why they tried to turn it round, so they wouldn't get found out. And now they have been found out.
What about that one, though?
Yeah, 1 in every 15 pounds spent on benefits is either fraud or a mistake.
That's not that low.
Yeah, that's not that low, is it? About £1 in every 15 pound is fraudulently claimed. Nearly 10 billion of taxpayers' money was paid out to bogus or erroneous claims, accounting for 6.7 of the total benefits bill. So there we go.
This is in the year 23-24.
Yeah, and Herma is
Do you
a
know
hypocrite.
what? I'm sorry, but I don't mean to interrupt, but I think that they should seriously go after every single penny of that's been fraudulent. Why are we not chasing that money back?
Well, yeah, the
don't care.
COVID thing. Do you remember when Sunak said, "Oh, we've got to write this off"? Well, why don't you find out who this 17 billion has been nicked by?
Rather than taxing farmers, rather than putting the NI up, rather than sort of going after pensioners and winter fuel, go and chase these.
Yeah, but there's
fraudulent claims.
they're going after the pensioners because when they die of the cold, they save money on big social bills. They're not going home to farmers because of the tax. They're going to get their land off them. So it's all ulterior motives.
Talking of that furlough, I had a friend of mine who bought a taxi firm, and he discovered when he went to apply for his government grant that the previous owner had applied for it on his behalf and kept the money. So my mate said, no, get the money back off him. They went, no, we'll just give it to you as well. And they literally had the name, address, bank account, everything of this bloke. Not bothered.
And
I
this
met
is
the
why
bloke
things
in
are
the
so
lift.
expensive.
I met the bloke who came up with the furlough in the lift here, not Sunak. It was an economist called Professor Tim Loonig, and he was with his Brompton.
Tim Looney.
I said, what are you doing here? He goes, I'm a civil servant. I went, sort of stopped, and he goes, my claim to fame is I came up with the furlough idea. And I thought, well, that's not really.
Very, very brave to admit that in this building.
Yeah, that's right. That's
I
right.
said, can you come on the show? He goes, oh, no, I couldn't possibly. No. I
Yeah,
couldn't.
Kelsey
Of course they
Freeze.
couldn't.
What was it? So was it Kenneth Williams?
Yeah, it was a bit.
Matron will put her on furlough.
Herma is hypocrite as deputies reveal pay. The Attorney General has been accused of hypocrisy over his refusal to declare his earnings from past legal cases after it emerged that his deputies have published theirs.
Oh, so basically, because Herma, I've said this before, matrix chambers are the ambulance chasers of terrorism, right? And what I mean by that is that they deliberately, find any case that they can that involves terrorists or bad people.
Jerry Adams, for instance.
Richard Herma has become a multi-millionaire defending some of the worst people imaginable. And when people say to you, oh, well, lawyers have got to take whichever case comes, that's absolute bunkum. These people deliberately solicit the Shamima Begans, the Jerry Adams, the Anjam Chowdhuries of this world. They solicit.
It does seem to go to one chambers or one or two specific, so it doesn't seem to be even.
And not only that, let's not forget, of course, it's all covered legal aid anyway, so they know they're going to get guaranteed pay.
Oh, absolutely.
So they don't
They're
care
making
less.
off like bandits. They're doing really
It
well.
says here, Lucy Rigby, the Solicitor General, and her predecessor, Sarah Sackman, both declared what they were paid for legal work before they took office, but Lord Herma, who worked as a private barrister for clients, including Jerry Adams, before he joined, has refused.
Yeah, because he doesn't want to turn round and go, I was on £6 million a year suing the British government
With
on
Jerry
behalf
Adams,
of terrorists.
Yeah.
Who would want to do that? It's better to be called a hypocrite than to openly admit what you've done. I think he's a real wrong 'un. I really do, and I don't think that defence of I have to take whichever case comes through the door is a fair defence. I think they hide behind it.
Ed Miliband argued against building of a third runway at Heathrow during a cabinet meeting on Tuesday. The Telegraph understands the Energy Security Secretary is thought to have voiced concerns about the environmental effects of the expansion.
He is an extremist, isn't he?
He looks a bit deranged, and I think he is.
Blooming bonkers. I mean, I wish I could say stronger language, or I won't, but he is insane.
I mean, he is plunging millions of people into poverty.
Yes.
Millions and millions.
We pay 5 times the energy costs of Americans.
Five times.
And their average wage is twice ours as well.
Also, you're talking,
he's mad. He's completely mad.
You're talking about I'll tell you what he is. His climate. I've always said, and I got criticised for saying this, but climate change is principally a religion. Right? It's a paganistic religion. Now, that doesn't mean that carbon is good for the environment, but the problem is you've got all the usual things. And as I've said before, lo and behold, a child is born to the world to take away our sins in Greta Thunberg. I mean, the whole thing is a religion.
It is like paganism because, they used to say if you upset, the gods, they won't have a thing growing and stuff. And it's basically a scientific crossover in religion saying, look, we won't be able to grow stuff in the whole world.
But you get exactly the same with the Inquisitions and the heretics and the priestly class. All of the worst bits of religion are now have now been taken up by. It's the problem is it's post-Christianism.
It is, and you know what's the difference between Christianity and all of this other new kind of woke religion is that in Christianity there is sin, we're all sinners, but there's also forgiveness, and then there's grace, and there's you can live. Whereas with this new religion, there's this original sin of being white, of being of your identity that you're born with is your sin. sin.
Yes.
And you can never repent of that
Yes.
enough. You must always forgive. Like, you can never be kind of like, there's never an end point. And I think that really eats people alive in this religion.
I mean, it eats me more that anyone would even think to compare Christianity, which by and large is born out of doing good, to the likes of climate changes and all of that woke nonsense. Ugh.
I completely agree.
Nothing.
But I think people have to believe in something, and climate change is a religion as a result. Okay, well, anyway, so if you are listening in the morning, we'd like to thank you for tuning in, and also say that Mike Graham is just up.
He's chomping at his bits. Look. Never seen that before.
Mike Graham is just up in a couple of moments. You can give his show a call 0344 499 1000. Take it away, Michael. Okay, for those of you who are listening on Thursday night, we are going to be back in a couple of moments with your calls. Are you hanging around, Philip? No, are you hanging around, Lois?
You're going to hang around like bad smells.
You want us to?
Well, okay. All right, well, we'll hang around then. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. If you want to talk about anything immigration-wise, if you want to talk about shoplifting being up 25%, if you want to talk about this ridiculous thing from the United States of America,
a couple more papers,
when the Civil Aviation Authority, their equivalent, which is called the FAA, prioritised getting blind and stupid people to be air traffic controllers. Oh, sorry, what they said was people who were severely intellectually challenged. Right?
Same thing.
Also, blind and deaf people as air traffic controllers. The Guardian has gone mad about it, claiming that Trump has behaved badly by bringing this up. I think it's been a disgrace. 0344 499 1000. Looks like it's me, Asher, and Lois, and Phil. Tour de force.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Okay, this is The Late Show with Andre Walker and Asher Gould. We're going to be back tomorrow, by the way, because James Wales off again. But what we've decided to do is, even though he's going to be back in a couple of weeks, we're going to make sure he comes on every Saturday, every Friday night show. Because then you're going to miss him, aren't you? If he's not about.
Let's start with, by the way, 0344 499 1000. Call in, we'll get you on. And we've got our friend Luke in Bromley. What do you want to say, Luke?
Hello.
All right,
I want to talk about the bashing that Trump's getting for talking about the the plane that downed. Look, it wasn't the cleverest time to talk about it.
Wasn't it?
But I like people like the way he just says things like people. It could have been that, and he's not being like a politician, and people like that because politicians lie to you. Normally.
I mean, what he's reading out is something. Luke, what he's reading out is something that's absolutely egregious, which is that under Buttigieg, or whatever his name is, they prioritised bringing in people who were blind, deaf, and stupid to being air traffic controllers because of diversity.
And this is not unprecedented. Look at his security. Look at the LA fires. There's no water. That was all because of DEI hires. So I mean, this is happening in all these captured agencies.
I mean, I'll tell you something. I've no problem with Donald Trump being a nasty and obnoxious bully in that respect, as long as he gets rid of the blind people from air traffic control. And I'm not saying that as a joke. I mean, it's a deadly serious comment.
Yeah, well, that's what I was getting to, because he's getting a lot of flack. I mean, you guys are right, but on certain other stations that we won't mention.
Yeah, but only because that's their agenda. I mean, they lie about everything.
Yeah, and they're all saying, oh, he's having to go to self. Well, look, I mean, I've got Parkinson's, and to be honest, if I was offered hundreds of thousands of pounds to be an aircraft a controller, I would turn it down, because I'd say I'm not fit. You know.
Well, equally, my personality is such that I wouldn't sit and concentrate for long enough to be a good air traffic controller.
I would do it if the money was right, even if I wasn't qualified. But that's just.
I'm not. I mean, I'm not. The reality is, I'm not losing sleep over the fact I wouldn't be a good air traffic controller.
I've played Flight Simulator.
I'm losing sleep over the fact that good air traffic controllers appear to be not the priority for this administration.
Yeah.
I mean, also, Lois, your husband was on one of the planes during the shift.
An hour before from Washington.
I was nearly widowed. It was awful. I mean, it really is. It really brings home the danger of these things. I mean, it isn't. We can often bash DEI schemes in kind of like a culture warsy way, but lives were at stake.
Yeah,
absolutely. And if this is indeed the cause of it, but look, you said that you didn't think that Trump should have brought this up. What do you make of his first 10 days? Do you think he's doing a good job?
I do think he should have brought it up, and I think he's doing a fantastic job. I'm just saying the timing, perhaps, when they're still getting bodies out the water, not the best.
Oh, so you would have done it perhaps in a couple of days.
But he didn't say it was. He said it could be, and it could be. So why shouldn't he just say true? People like the politicians telling the truth.
He's going at a million miles an hour. He's not perfect, but goodness me, he's doing a fantastic job overall. But my main point was, because they're running all these disabled people up, getting them to phone in and all sorts, saying you must feel really hurt and pull down well. So my main message is, I've trained, and to be honest, I recognise that I'm not good enough for something.
Well, why wouldn't you be qualified? Because mentally you're fine. Is there a physical? Is it because you think the physical problems would cause a problem?
Yeah, well, you because low Parkinson's, you get ons and offs, so your energy dropped and stuff. So
you get tired. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can't be you can't guarantee. So look, I wouldn't. And likewise, who was it? Martin Luther King said, we want it so that we're not just by the colour of our skin, but by the merit of our character.
And he's a hero of all these lefties, but yet they're going against exactly what he wants.
So his exact message was, we don't want to get jobs, or we want to be missed off or get jobs because of the colour of skin. So here we go. And I'm married to a black woman as well, by the way.
It's patronising, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, that's actually the irony behind it, of course, is that sort of by giving people jobs based on the colour of their skin rather than their merit, that is actually still not treating people from minority backgrounds as equal. That's the irony.
Well, look
that's
at
so stupid.
The Harvard president. Look at her. She was even a plagiarist. She was useless.
But I'll tell you what I find stupid about this whole thing. We see lefties on the BBC and places like that going, we need to bring immigration to this country so people can do the jobs we don't want. Right, okay. So what you're doing is you are bringing people over from, say, Bangladesh or Pakistan to do the jobs you don't want, and then complaining they're badly paid. Well, hang on a second. You've literally brought them, by definition.
And you're looking down on them, saying, we don't want to do those jobs. They can come and do it. Those, people, the paupers from there can come
but hang on. Yeah, but that is actually, technically speaking, symptomatic of a very separate problem, which is we, for so many years now, have bred successive generations to believe that they are better than they actually might be. And therefore, this is why we have such a boom in people who are on benefits, because they're sort of like this middle ground, this chasm, if you like, of individuals who can't do anything.
Like when Blair said everyone should go to university.
Yes, because basically they don't have the ability to do, sort of, say, jobs that are above their abilities, but yet they've been told they're too good to do jobs that they now don't want to do.
And you've got a degree in underpants pulling up, or from,
well, that is a useful one.
From the University of Tired Sheffield. Or something, you know
So many. So Heather,
I won't ask what it means to get a 2-1.
Oh, I've got a degree in shoelace tying. Oh, congratulations, that'll be helpful. But actually, I think it was a big con.
Yeah, thanks.
Because I mean, there are some universities out there where really, if you get a degree from them, you will not be any more employable than if you didn't have a degree at all. But what you will get is you get your £9,000 a year bill. And I think it's deeply unfair. And also, the other thing you've got to remember about crap universities is that going to a quality institution is very much a middle-class sport. A lot of working-class families don't have the level of institutional knowledge to know that you're better going. Well, I don't want to name any universities out there. I don't want to be entirely unfair, but
You'll be a bit unfair, not entirely unfair.
it's unusual. Normally you're unfair.
Did you see Oxford and Cambridge are reducing?
Oh, there you go. You've mentioned
the University of Bolton. I'm sorry to the University of Bolton, but it is rubbish. It is rubbish. The University of Bolton.
Might have improved since you were there.
No,
it's got worse.
I did not attend the University.
I know, I'm joking.
The University of Bolton.
Heather in Girvan.
Do you know Donald Trump? He never gone to college. He never gone to university to become a businessman. He learned it from his father, and that's one good thing about Donald Trump. And the reason why Scotland want to be having this independence and Northern Ireland wants to split away from the United Kingdom, it goes to show what bunch of useless UK English governments that you've got back in England, because us in Scotland we got a different system.
Did you had bad storms? You had bad storms up there. Did you get blown? Have you been blown last week?
Heather, what did Trump learn from his father?
You lot have your democratic right of voting and have freedom of speech. What the hell are they to stop you lot?
Heather, I just want to know what Donald Trump learned from his father.
Well, his father is a businessman.
Yeah.
He was a businessman. He's not
Fred.
anymore, is he?
And he started off
His granddad owned a brothel.
He didn't go to university. He didn't go to college to get his business started. No, he did it by himself.
And $1 million loan from his dad.
Men
We're going to say he sort of didn't do it by himself. Yeah, he had quite a lot of help.
That's why you need Nigel Farage to really lay into this freaking lazy, good-for-nothing government.
Lois, I think you had a question for Heather, didn't you?
Shit.
What do you think about the Scottish government, Heather? What are your thoughts on the SNP?
Come on, Heather. Come on, Heather. Lois, you had a question.
Splinters, Heather. Apologies.
Have you ever been to Girvan?
I can't recall being to Girvan. I could well have, but yeah, Heather, how do you think the Scottish government are faring, managing our bonny country?
Tell you what, we're still going ahead with our election in Scotland, because it's a different system than we've got up here in Scotland.
You have 16-year-olds voting up there, don't you? Is that 16-year-olds?
That's why our parliament is so immature.
That's why they voted for Jimmy Cranky.
Indeed.
Yeah. Because the reason why Scotland has a different system than the system that down in London, because they do it.
Well, it's not a proper parliament, is it, for a start?
Scotland are different, a hell of a lot different than you lot down in London.
We've got different legal systems.
What about these
local elections up in Scotland?
What about these hate speech laws, Heather? What about the...
You can just ask her anything, she'll give you the same answer.
What about the Scottish government coming to take away our free speech?
Well, tell you what, Nigel Farage is welcome to come up to Scotland with it.
He's a good man himself, a good Englishman.
Heather, what do you think about the Dangerous Dogs Act?
Scotland was reformers.
Heather, have you got a view on the Dangerous Dogs Act?
Well, if Nigel Farage could sort that out, couldn't he?
Yes, Nigel Farage.
He sort out dangerous dogs.
A lot of seats up in Scotland. Good for him.
What do you think about the price of smoked salmon?
Well, in Scotland, it's just where it comes from, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's true. Sorry.
Thanks, Eva.
Do you know the only place you
You
can
didn't
get...
let her answer my
Do you know-
question.
We'll never know.
Do you know the only place you can get wild Scotch salmon is in England? Right, the reason
That's
is...
wild.
The reason is...
The best haggis is in England as well.
The Scottish Government has banned wild salmon fishing, right? But the English haven't. And so when there's one particular river, I don't know which one it is, that comes out of Scotland into England, and there's one bloke who's got a fishing line. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So actually, believe it or not, you can't get wild Scottish smoked salmon at all.
You can't get Scottish salmon, you can't get Scottish oil, can't get Scottish
But
anything.
fortunately, the Scotch are still very good at whiskey, thank goodness.
Yeah.
They are. What's your favourite whiskey?
Oh, I don't know whether or not I have got a favourite one per se. I mean, one of my go-tos would be a distillery called Springbank, which I quite like them, but the truth, absolutely other distilleries are available. The truth is that I might stress that they're not necessarily the cheapest. So.
All right, let's have a look at a bottle of Springbank. Right, how much?
Hang on a second. Now, I'm being told I'm showing off here. I'm not showing off. I didn't say I bought a bottle of that recently.
No, you want it sent, a box of it sent.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah. If anyone was
Oh!
there we go.
What's that?
Okay, he's just seen the price.
It's £90 a bottle for the entry level.
Oh, no, that's actually quite good. No, the one
That's
I
a
like is about
10-year-old.
150 quid. So
if you want to send him one, he doesn't want the cheap one.
no, I don't like any
Anyway.
of the cheap nonsense.
Let's stay relatable.
By the way, can
That's
I tell
far
you?
too cheap
do you know
for
what
my
I do,
palate.
do you know what I drink? Do you know what I drink? I drink Glen's vodka. I'm
Right.
not joking.
With a bit of Tizer.
What
a
does he
dash of
drink?
Tizer.
I've also got a soda stream. Get busy with the fizzy.
He's got his cocktail machine now.
What do you... Hang on, you're not suggesting you put the vodka through the soda stream,
No,
are you?
I'll tell you what I've got in my house. I'm not joking because I've got no kids. Right, I've just buy stupid things. So I've got a fruit dehydrator.
Oh.
I've
Why?
got a cocktail machine.
To dehydrate
I've got
fruit.
I've got an ice machine. I've got an ice crushing machine. I've got a soda stream. And I've got a can fridge. Right.
And you must have a very big kitchen.
So all crowded, but basically what it means is I've got my cocktail machine. So I put the little pod in. It's like a coffee machine. Press the button. It does me a Long Island iced tea, and then I put crushed ice in it
that's fun.
and dehydrated fruit.
And does it actually taste nice, or can you taste that it's like a bit processed because it's come from a machine?
No, it's really good actually.
Oh, really?
So are the actual alcoholic beverages in the pot?
No, what you have to do is you have to put 4 bottles of alcohol, like gin, tequila,
Right.
vodka, whiskey, and then you put the pod in. That's just like the bitters,
The herbs and
yeah,
things.
The
exactly.
life of those who live in
Wow.
Ascot.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Please do drink responsibly, by the way.
By the way,
By
we
the way, I'm
didn't...
thinking of moving to Slough.
Slough.
Are you?
The Horlicks development in Slough is brilliant.
Oh, there you go.
That's the whole story.
I heard it was a load of Horlicks.
Hey, did you know that Horlicks is gruel? They don't market it as gruel.
I like it. They shouldn't have marked gruel.
Surely it's a bit more watered down than gruel.
Well, gruel is watered down.
Yeah, but it was not.
If
surely
you
it's
drink
not-
Horlicks, Horlicks is a type of gruel.
Yes, but it couldn't. Surely it's not the same thin consistency.
Yes,
as
it
like
is.
liquid.
It's gruel.
No,
Horlicks
it was
is
thinner
gruel.
because it was at the workhouse. It was even worse than Horlicks.
So people are saying to me that this is niche even for me to point out that Horlicks is a type of gruel.
Well, what's Ovaltine? Is that also...
Gruel. It's gruel. It's all gruel.
Call in and tell us what's the best gruel. Let's go to Michelle in Birmingham.
What's your favourite variety of gruel?
Michelle,
I was going to say, please, sir.
what's your favourite gruel, Michelle?
I was going to actually say, please, sir. I want some more. Because I just listened to that whole conversation. I was just cringing.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's just what the show's about.
You've actually, like, I'm literally, I can't stop laughing. But
It's out of
Okay,
nerves.
but-
Don't worry, we've all been there.
no, my favourite type of gruel would be we could mince off a bit of bacon, bit of egg.
That's
throw in
not
a bit of
gruel.
cob in there.
Stick to gruel.
Yeah, gruel is. It's a bit,
What we need to do is
Pardon?
if anyone has some Ovaltine or Horlicks tonight, we have to go, please, sir, can I have some more? More!
Well, now I look at gruel as quite nice because it's nice Horlicks and Ovaltine.
Oh, do you know, I've
I
just
don't know what
thought-
Oliver was moaning about.
Yeah, but hang on a second. Let's just be clear. Oliver wanted more of it. He didn't
Yeah.
complain.
Oh, yeah, he liked
he
it.
didn't
Yeah.
complain it was bad. He complained it was insufficient.
Maybe it was an advert for like because they
Maybe
did
it
that
was.
Popeye. They did spinach to boost spinach sales.
there you go. And you was talking about the Scottish government, and you was like, it was
we're built on iron brew, on good.
And actually, I think if you think about it,
Horlicks, isn't it? We're built on.
The reason
you know, Michelle, if you think about it, we actually probably have Charles Dickens to thank for the concept of unlimited refills. Because to save people the embarrassment of asking for more.
What's your favourite? Look at the banner. What's your favourite grill?
If you are watching.
I'll tell you something, right? In defence of gruel.
They're all calling in about a favourite gruel.
In defence of gruel, right? I mean, there is a reason why most of the European population ate it for 3 meals a day for most of human history, right? They quite liked it. It wasn't just
It's nutritious.
Yeah.
Gruel. It's got all your bits.
Either that or it was cost effective.
Do you remember
they had it out of choice.
Do you remember Dave Gorman, who said that Huel was hipster gruel? That's why it's called Huel.
But what did you phone in to talk about, Michelle?
Gruel.
It wasn't gruel, was it?
I don't. Just making me laugh. But I rang in about the. Obviously, I heard about the horrendous event that happened with the airplane crashing with the helicopter, and then listening to what Donald Trump said. I'm sorry, I'm going to keep laughing. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be disrespectful. But okay, let's put it this way, yeah. So, I agree with what he said. How do you expect somebody or any person, regardless of gender, race, religion, if somebody has got a disability in a certain way, like, so, okay, if you're visually impaired, mate, I'm not going.
You shouldn't be a lifeguard. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not booking a flight now and going to future Ventura with. No, I'm not doing that because you've got to. Let's.
Yeah, well, it's like
wokery costs lives in all kinds of ways.
No matter how much people can say that I'm saying this to be in some way disrespectful or make a joke.
You're not.
If you are a quadriplegic, you should not be a lifeguard.
Wokery causes deaths. It causes deaths from people drowning in the ocean. It causes working class girls to be raped because you're covering it up.
Exactly.
It causes it caused the LA fires because they have DI. And he's not saying it was DI. He's saying it could be. And there's lots of agencies where it has proven to be that.
So now, if I'm in Skeg Vegas, right, and I'm drowning, I've had a few too many, and I've now gone into the North Sea and I'm drowning, and then you're coming to rescue me, but you've got no arms, you can't see. How are you going to rescue me?
Call in if you know how you would carry out that rescue.
By the way, the gallery are going mad about the way that I've diverted this topic away. But just to be clear, ready brek is not a form of gruel, right? I just want to be clear. It's a form of porridge.
But it is similar. I mean, Horlicks and ready brek, they're sort of. It's like the Premier League Horlicks, isn't it?
You can Horlicks, because it's gruel, can be used to make porridge, right?
I see, but you can't turn porridge into gruel.
If you water down porridge, it becomes gruel.
Oh, you can turn porridge into gruel, but you can't turn gruel into porridge. That's a good maxim to live by.
So if you water down your ready brek, it becomes gruel.
That is a brilliant educational, this programme. Educational, isn't it?
Look at the producer, Chucky's just given up.
Yeah.
Look at his face.
Look, have we got a little break here?
He's just shaking his head.
We've still got more papers, but...
He keeps saying in my ear, go back to some papers and stop talking.
More gruel after this.
Gruel.
the UK. On DAB+. On your smart speaker. On your smart TV. And on your side. This is Talk.
Okay, what shall we go to Ken in London? Okay, right. What story are we going to talk about?
I think it was babies or tax.
All right,
Lois has got this. You take over here.
So we are extremely concerned, Lois, about the fact that the birth rate is so low that we're going to have to put up tax and presumably even expand further our uncontrolled immigration.
Yeah, absolutely. The birth rate in Britain is abysmally low, the lowest ever, with couples typically having less than one child each now. And there's many different reasons why this is going to cause problems, not only because it's good to have families and people are becoming increasingly lonely and atomized in society, but also because of its impact on the welfare state. So if we don't have a generation growing up ready to kind of meet the working age and provide and be generating income, generating tax, then when we hit our elderly generation, who's going to be able to provide all those resources to care for us? If we have a huge proportion...
No, robots. In 20 years, it'll be robots doing all of this stuff. So we need less population and more,
To be honest, it'll be a lot of technology.
It could be, but then who innovates the technology if we just don't have enough people?
Elon Musk is doing that already. There's already robots that can do anything. They can watch you and copy you.
Is a robot as good as a human now, in genuine terms?
In 20 years, I mean, they already are. They can catch a ball.
That's true. They might be able to do something for you, but I don't want to be cared for.
Hang on a second. Sorry, Lois. What you did was you let him away with that.
I didn't. I was coming back.
You went. Is a human as good as a robot? And he went. You can get one that catches a ball.
For
you.
you.
But you get humans who can't catch a ball.
Brilliant.
Yeah, but it can do anything. It can watch you cook an omelette, and then it can go, I'll cook an omelette now.
On an intellectual level and a capability level, it's more than likely robots are better. Otherwise, why would we have
I don't want to be cared for by a robot.
So emotionally, we wouldn't want to be cared for by a robot.
I don't know. An attractive sex robot would be...
But in terms of abilities, if you think of the way that robotics have rapidly replaced humans in factory lines, it's because they're more efficient.
They're even safer in cars.
They're more efficient and they are better at what they do in that.
I just want to ask you though, right? When you talk, and you may not have the statistics off the top of your head, but we're talking about a population shortage.
Yeah.
What is the total number of abortions since abortion was legalised?
250,000 per year.
Wow.
I hit over 10 million last year since the
so we wouldn't have a population of 10 million more, would we? We wouldn't be far off, because when was it legalised? 1960?
Well, they would have had more than one kid, so we would have had more than 10, it would have been 20 million maybe more.
Because whatever way you look at it, whatever your religious views are on abortion, if we have a population crisis, then one would assume making it easier to get rid of a baby would be a poor manoeuvre.
Well, indeed.
Just even if you don't care about the humanity of any of it.
I know, it's absolutely. I mean, we're on the brink of a real crisis here in terms of population. I mean, there is a point in which you can't turn back. Japan can't turn back. They've gone to such an extreme that they just will not be able to carry on as a population for much longer. And we see across Europe this trend is continuing. There is just
if you look at Rome, modern Romans are not that closely related to the Julius Caesar Romans that we think of in history. The reality is mass immigration just diluted them completely. I mean, modern-day Romanians are much more closely related to Romans than people who live in Rome.
You never see modern Romans wearing togas or those leaves around their head, do you, actually, now you come to point it out?
And they're complaining about the gruel, right? Come on, right, let's go to Ken in London.
Ken in London.
Good morning,
babies,
gentlemen and ladies.
Talk to us, Ken.
Good morning.
Ladies is singular, but yes, keep going.
If you allow me, I'd like to talk about two things, if you give me time, if that's okay. I'd like to talk about the police, first of all, and also about Mr. Trump, if that's okay.
Well, we'd like you to start with the babies thing, really.
I have
for continuity.
Great experience with the police in London, and I commend the Met Police in London for allowing.
But I mean, really, we want to start with the babies thing, just for continuity. The producer's telling me.
Do you think the UK is running out of babies?
Can you start with the babies? Please?
Hello.
Yeah, Ken. Can you just Lois? Can you start? Just see if you can get him to talk.
Hello.
About the baby.
Ken, do you think that Britain should have more babies?
Hello.
No, I don't want to talk about that. We certainly need more babies.
No, but I mean, Ken, really, that is what we want to start with, and then we can go on to...
Here's Ash again breaking in. I come on, and this man, Ash, because he hates Jesus, the Messiah, He wants to silence me. That's a disgrace.
No, but I mean, come on, Ken.
Ken, I don't think it's about silencing you.
I don't always talk over you, do I? I mean, only sometimes.
You're a
Do I talk
disgraceful,
over you?
evil man, Ash, and you need to repent.
I will repent, but at a time, my time has not come.
Ken, Ash isn't evil. How could you say that?
Well, no,
He
Antichrist.
is downright evil. He hates Messiah, the Son of God.
Ken thinks
Really?
I mock Jesus.
Speaking of sons, do you think the UK should have more babies?
Of course we need more babies. We need a good population. But I'd like to
But I
talk
mean,
about the
people
police,
talk
if you
about
don't mind.
Well, we do.
But
We do
but-
mind. I
London.
mean,
But we should talk
do
about
mind.
babies.
The producer
I commend
minds.
the police in London.
Have
They're
they had
very
babies?
friendly. They
No,
allow freedom
babies.
of
It's
speech.
babies or nothing.
Good
Ken,
night,
don't you
good
think we
night.
should encourage parents to take more responsibility?
God's sake.
Babies!
For God's sake, what was that? What was
He's
that?
gone, he's hung up. Oh, you upset Ken. He
Right,
called me the Antichrist
sorry,
again, and
just
I
to-
blame you.
Just to explain to everybody what just happened there. Earlier we had a Christian on who had been bullied by the police. Ken is also an evangelical preacher, right? He came on to talk about his own experiences with the police, and all you lot did was just talk about
No,
babies.
that's because the producer was saying getting back onto babies.
But I
The
genuinely
topic
want
was
to hear what you have to
babies.
say.
He can't choose a
Oh,
topic.
can I tell Hark the hypocrite in the gallery there? We can't choose a topic. Heathering Gavan comes on
Yeah.
and just says anything that.
By the way, Ken, it's Chuck that's the Antichrist. He's pulling my strings. Anyway, Brian in Whitley Bay, hey, man.
Hi, Ashwin. Sorry, hi, Ash. Hi, Andre.
By the way, Ken, call us back and tell us your favourite gruel. Sorry, Brian.
Who invented the skip?
Yeah. Brian.
If I'm not fired
I was
after
gonna
this show.
Your guest, Lois, she's Scottish.
Yeah.
How did you guess?
I thought you were American accent's funny.
So I thought that
I
when
just
I
wondered,
first-
is the universities up in Scotland like free, isn't it, for people up there? Is
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people kind of like, well, down here they kind of resent that, I mean, but, you know, like I say, they should bring back the polytechnics, I think, but...
Well, they just called them universities. They never got rid of them.
Yeah, no, but it's, you know, I can barely remember polytechnics. I mean, they're more like, you know, practical courses and stuff like that, and I just thought they were
I went to
better, like, you know.
Polytechnic.
But yeah, I used to have a. I've just got engaged anyway, so I told
Mazel tov. Mazel tov.
Oh, don't say that. Ken will be back on kicking off.
Can I mention the girlfriend's name on there?
Yeah, go on then.
She'll be listening. Jodie Townsend. Hiya.
All right, Jodie Townsend.
Congratulations, Jodie.
What did you see in Brian?
Oh, I know. Do you know what it is? I've been trying to get a decent lass for quite a long time because I've got 4
So
daughters.
basically, you were struggling because you're fairly ugly and boring, and then this woman basically took pity.
Is that what happened, Brian?
Andre, you're outrageous,
actually,
man.
Do you know what it is, all right?
It so happens she just wants to live in Whitley Bay.
That's right, because she's mad.
No, Andre, what it is, because I've got 4 daughters, it kind of puts women off because, like, oh God, he's a bit, you know, he's got 4 kids and stuff, you know what I mean? So it kind of puts women off, I think.
Yes.
Oh, but not
Really?
Jodie.
But no, she's from Yorkshire. She's a brilliant lass, yeah. So
And she is a lass because she's from Yorkshire.
Brian, can I be really nosy? Can I ask how you two met?
On a Yorkshire dating site.
A Yorkshire
Love it.
date.
Oh, yeah, I've
love
been on
that.
that. E-bar gum.
Is
YorkshireDating.com.
it called A Up?
Right, what's your...
Yes, that's what it was.
Is it called YorkshireDating.com?
There's a dating site, YorkshireDating.com.
And is it all Yorkshire women on there and Yorkshire men?
Yeah, West Yorkshire, North Yorkshire.
God, they
South
so like to be
Yorkshire, East
separate,
Yorkshire.
don't they, people from Yorkshire?
YorkshireDating.com,
Because
right.
they see themselves as like better than
Come on, right.
Yorkshire.
It's not YorkshireDating.com.
He's made it up. You sure she's not a con woman?
YorkshireDatingSite.co.uk.
Well, you know, she's
Right,
married him. We've got to check
Phil,
these
just
things.
pose for photo for 1 minute.
You're not putting on a
No, go
profile
on,
of
go
me.
on.
Don't
Go
be
on, Phil.
ridiculous.
Right, there we go.
goodness sake.
Right, hang on. Phil,
You
Look, we're
can't
going to go to a
have-
break
Stop
and
it.
we'll be back after this with more.
we're going to set up a Phil Dave Yorkshire dating profile.
By the
Like
way,
heck we are.
The gruel line is still open.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
So Phil Dave's Yorkshire dating profile is going live. The picture is absolutely superb. Right, okay, so what we'll do is we'll read out...
I wished he was joking.
We'll read out the URL of it.
Wait, hang on, what have you put as like the biog or something?
Where are you based?
You'll find out.
Where is based? Shipley. We'll put, right, Shipley, okay, Shipley in North Yorkshire. Right, keep talking.
They're never going to believe I come from Yorkshire sounding like this.
They can't see your face because you put your hand over it.
Oh, what
are you looking for? A relationship, casual dating, friendship, open to anything. We'll go for...
Oh, thanks.
Can you do a Yorkshire accent?
Open to anything.
No.
What are you interested in? Where's smoking? They don't have... Do you remember any hobbies used to be like smoking?
Well, that is one of your hobbies.
Start talking like this, like come from Yorkshire or something.
I think dancing and flirting we're putting down as your key
Dancing and flirting.
Dancing and flirting.
You're interested between 18 and 100? Well, if you're desperate...
Beggars can't... I'm not desperate. So apparently you're telling me I'm desperate. I'm not. But anyway.
Phil Dave, there we go, yeah. There we go. Let's see if we've got... There's a Phil Dave already.
They'll never buy into the fact that I'm Yorkshire.
Your username Phil Dave is available.
Oh.
Right, start typing.
Amazing.
Up for
I
fun.
wanted that username for Twitter. It wasn't available. Amazingly, it's available for Yorkshire dating.
And casual fling.
I'm pleased you finished that sentence anyway.
Oh, that's too short. You have to have other interests as well. I
talk sport.
I also like sports.
Especially Alan Brazil.
Sports and curried eggs.
We love visualising things.
I don't really believe that curried eggs is made.
Yeah, curried eggs.
Yeah,
right,
okay.
You're interested in curried eggs.
Do you want your eggs curried?
Oh, my.
What about you?
Gruel.
Lover of gruel.
Does anyone else feel like
babies
they're in a
and
parallel
gruel?
universe
Gruel,
right
babies,
Not
and
together.
evangelical Christians.
Haven't you got more calls to get to?
Yeah, actually, let's go to Steve in Warsaw while he logs you onto
thank
Yorkshire.
goodness.
Steve, in Warsaw, in Black Country. Steve.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen.
All right.
I'd just like to remind people that this asylum-seeking illegal immigrants is nothing new, because there's a certain man, I suggest, one of the biggest hypocrites as a Prime Minister in this country, Tony Blair.
Yeah.
He encouraged...
Yeah, but not on this level. It's only the last 3 or 4 years we've been getting like 1 million a year. In his day, it was like 30, 40,000.
He was the one who encouraged...
He's the one who brought these laws in and ruined our constitution with the Supreme Court and took sovereignty from Parliament, and lawfare was brought in by him.
Including a certain woman that made millions out of the legal aid. And it's carried on now to what it is. And
well, it's been set up by Blair, and then Keir Starmer's ran with it, hasn't he?
Keir Starmer is the biggest hypocrite, I'll suggest it. He's the biggest hypocrite to ever put a pair of trousers on. And that man, I just cannot believe how he got to be the Chief Justice of the law in this country, how he got to be a Sir, and how he's doing what he's doing now. I just cannot believe it.
Well,
Tell you what, I can't believe
Prime Minister.
there are 8,756 people currently on Yorkshire dating, right? I mean, there's 9,000 Yorkshires.
By the way, they're flooding in for you, Phil. They're all swiping.
Steve.
When I started coming across from Eastern Europe, I bumped into 5 people, 5 lads, good lads, don't get me wrong. They've all got denims on, they've got trainers on. And he said, well, we've had this off British.
Was it status quo?
No, anyway. Another story, a friend of mine at that particular time, he had got a second-hand car selling business.
Steve, can I ask you, because you said... Steve.
With a chitty for a car.
I beg your pardon?
A chippy for... He swapped a chippy for a car?
He rung them up, and he says, that says, yes, you've got to... If you've got a car to that value, you've got to give me some. And I said...
What are you talking about? He swapped his chippy for a car.
It's better for him to go round in a car than get buzzes so they can get jobs.
What car was it? Because chippies, chippies are...
Well,
what car was it?
People now don't know
What car was it, Steve?
Oh, and 59. Look at her, she's fit. Right, come on, let's have her.
Wait, he's finding out what car it is.
I don't know what car it was, but it was to the value of the chitty was given from the DA.
So what? It must have been a nice car to swap it for a chippy.
A chitty to the value.
Chitty.
And he rung them up. I said, yes, you've got to do it.
What?
I don't know what he's doing.
What's a chitty? I hope I'm
So you give him a piece of paper with, like, this is the money.
With the value of the car, and I'm
Just liking all of them.
I'm not rung up to have a sensible conversation as a Mickey took out. I mean,
No, Steve, I'm being serious. I didn't know what it was. I was genuinely asking. It's not taking the mickey. I didn't know what it was.
That's how he's genuine, Phil.
Anyway, and another one.
Yeah.
It was the manager of a car auction company.
Yeah.
He was sent a letter saying you've got to employ an immigrant if one comes. Anyway, he rang him up and he said, how can I employ an immigrant if he can't speak English and he can't do the job I want him to do? And he said, what about if an English bloke comes? He says, oh, no, don't count for English people. It only counts for immigrants. And what happened? One come, they give him a job, and one of the other employees, he had his legs chopped off between a car because the chap they sent, he didn't know what he was doing. Now, you comment on that.
Well, no, this is exactly wokery kills. I mean, it constantly does because they will put that above safety, and we've seen it in all kinds. Well, people drowning in the English Channel is because we're not allowed to stop it because of wokery.
This is what I know from over the years.
And this is just your anecdote, and people know these own personal anecdotes all over the place.
Phil, have you got your driving licence with you?
Fascinating anecdote. No. Now,
or a passport.
Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Stephen.
Giraffe with a bit.
Oh, he's gone.
Look, the problem is, right, I've liked 50 women on this site.
Well, that's very kind of you.
And they vary in age.
As me, you have.
Yeah, as you.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Now the only problem is we can't get into the chat segment without your passport or driving licence.
Oh no.
Right, can we have your passport or driving? Phil, I don't know why you're being a spoil sport.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, Phil, come on.
I'm being a spoil sport because I don't want to have a fake profile.
Right, no,
we want to do it real.
There's a very nice woman called Leslie. She's 68. Right. She's a grandmother and she likes cats. Right, and she's a woman called Leslie.
Okay. Right. So what am I supposed to do with this information?
Does anyone watching want to date Phil? We can forget this. We can get you straight through to Phil. Live dating in the last 15 minutes.
We're particularly looking for people over the age of 60 from Yorkshire. Right.
What do you want, Phil? All their own teeth?
Interesting cats.
We don't mind no teeth.
What am I looking for? A cab home?
You can forget about that.
All right. So to all of you who are on Yorkshire dating, you'll be able to find Phil, Dave. We'll be back in a mo once we've regrouped.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Okay, so just for those of you that want to see Phil Dave's new dating profile, it's on my Twitter, at Andre JP Walker. Will you retweet it as well? Now, Phil, I've got some good news and bad news. The good news is somebody has phoned up asking you for a date. The bad news is it's a man.
Martin in Birchington. Martin, you're through to Talk. You're through to Phil. Tantalised, Phil.
How you all doing? You all right?
All right, man.
Well, I was all right. I'm not so good now.
I'm keen to look at this profile.
Okay, well, you go.
Are you now?
Do well you're on the phone to us.
I'm a man, but I'm still curious.
All right. Unfortunately, Phil is not curious, which is going to be a bit of a problem on dates. But nonetheless,
Any odd way.
Like a drunken fumble.
What are your hobbies, Martin?
My hobbies? I like looking through dating profiles of men.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds totally normal.
And then what do you do? Do you like Talk Sport? Do you listen to Talk Sport?
I was just wondering. I only tuned in about 10 minutes ago.
Right.
I was just wondering if
I'm so sorry. The earlier part of the show was much better.
I bet it
Phil,
was.
beggars can't be choosers, right? Martin sounds very nice. I know you don't want to marry a man, but if needs must, you're just going to have to, right? It's just I can't.
You're not the one who's going to have to explain this to my parents.
Look, what you could do is, but Martin, would you be willing to dress up?
Oh my God!
I'm open to suggestions.
Exactly.
Yeah, marvellous stuff.
Exactly. Put some lipstick on. Your mum and dad will never know.
So do you live at the seaside? Isn't Birchington at the seaside?
Yeah. It's kind of around the Margate area.
Down to Margate. I mean, so you've got a nice place overlooking the ocean.
Be romantic.
There's Ramsgate.
Yeah.
Margate, that kind of.
Oh, lovely, because Van Gogh was a supply teacher in Ramsgate.
He was, yeah.
He was a supply artist.
Van Gogh chopped off one of his ears, didn't he?
Yeah, that's right.
I'm sort of tempted.
So what could you offer Phil Dave that would turn him from heterosexual Jewish gentleman into South Coast homosexual? Right? How could we do that?
How can you turn him?
How did we get here?
I can make him a cracking spaghetti carbonara.
Yes.
I'm going to wake up soon, I'm sure.
Carbonara. Hang on, you can't make him a carbonara. It's pork.
I was going to say, I'm Jewish vegetarian.
No.
Well, that's the end I go.
Next, sorry, you've blown it.
I've got to say.
It was going so well.
Here we go. So we've got a Jewish vegan heterosexual.
Not vegan. No.
And Martin has phoned up offering him a pork dish, and he's a man.
Other than that, it was almost a perfect match.
Marty is also heterosexual. He's just experimenting.
Slipped at the first hurdle, haven't I?
Yeah, well, quite. Yeah, but don't worry, Martin. There are plenty more fish in the sea.
Yeah,
so.
I've got.
Well, there isn't these days.
I've got to be.
They're farmed fish in the sea.
I've got to be honest with you. Your ability to make pork-based dishes is of limited appeal to a Jewish guy. Limited appeal.
You don't have to put the bacon in.
Well, there you go.
Well, there you go. He's almost recovered.
How would you make a non-bacony carbonara?
Smoked salmon in.
It's like having Ian Lee back, this, isn't it?
Only slightly less fun.
Chicken, I don't know. I'll improvise. I'm good at improvisation, so.
Right.
Well, that's good.
Are you interested in curried eggs?
Curried eggs?
Yes.
Yeah, well.
Egg curry.
I like pickled eggs.
Do you like pickled eggs? Do you like pickled eggs, Phil?
Well, I did.
We have so much in common.
Yes, pickled eggs are... no, they're awful. Why would anyone like eat pickled eggs, for goodness sake? I was trying to be polite. They're awful.
Like in a chippy.
Lois, pickled eggs. What's your weird? Scottish, what do they have pickled eggs? Would they
I'm convinced.
Can you have a deep fried pickled egg?
I'm convinced that every Scottish dish
good.
started as a bet. I bet you wouldn't be willing to eat a sheep's intestines in its stomach.
That's probably true.
Did you say, what did you say, every Scottish dish?
Yeah.
Well, yes.
Starts as a bet.
They're sort of being like mildly xenophobic.
Have you had one? Have you had a
deep fried Mars bar?
I haven't had a deep fried Mars bar.
My friend said the problem was when he had a deep fried Mars bar, they'd fried it in the same thing that they fry the fish in for the fish and chips. And so
actually they'd have a bit of like a sort of like an oceany taste about it.
Exactly right.
Do you know what they do now? Apparently in Scotland they have a deep fried doner kebab, so it's batter around a doner, whole doner with a pita. Yeah.
So multicultural.
Yeah, it's very cosmopolitan, isn't it?
So multi-organ failure.
Somebody said that they're glad this show's on tonight because the League of Gentlemen disappeared recently. So, OK, Robert
I've got a horrible feeling it's not the only thing that would disappear.
Thank you, Martin. Robert is in Grimsby. Come on, Robert.
Grimsby Bob.
What are you going to talk...
How we doing? We all right, boys?
Yeah,
we're doing all right.
I've been better.
This is a man must know about fish.
And ladies. Right, it's not about fish, it's about a combination of the wokerati in the arts and the overfisher health and safety legislation, which is putting American lives at risk.
Oh, thank heavens, bring us back on track. Thank you.
Well, it might be.
He knew this today. He alluded to it, right? What's happened in the past few years, right, is basically the wokerati have taken over the arts.
Yes.
Now, people who obviously had the condition dwarfism, and he put this today, they used to be able to get this great gig, pantos, movies, Disney, Snow White, that were made for it. They weren't applying for the giant in Jack and the Beanstalk. What happened, though, is because the wokerati have deemed this to be demeaning, they've taken away that from those people.
Can I be totally honest with you? Can I be totally honest with you, Robert?
Yeah.
Sometimes when I'm here during the day, I go to a fish kiosk in Borough Market, right? And there's a guy there who's got dwarfism, and let me tell you, he used to take every single December off and get paid literally about $6,000 in 1 month. It's now been banned. He's going absolutely crazy.
It's a guaranteed gig he was made for. Guaranteed gig he was made for. What has happened in America, though, is the FAA have seen that they have had a shortage of staff for a decade. And they have realised that they had a ready-made workforce available. But that brings it back to the official health and safety legislation. Because these people weren't allowed to take step ladders into work, they couldn't see out of the window and they couldn't see the planes. And that is putting people's lives at risk.
No, but actually, Robert, you sort of like even just hearing you say it out loud, it's sort of... It sounds like a parallel universe. Genuinely, how is this reality? Seriously.
It's common sense.
But there is no common sense. There is nothing about that is sensical. It's just ridiculous.
Common nonsensical.
It's absolutely.
I'll tell you what. It has caused. It is right. So obviously, give me a second, Robert. On the serious note, you know, having a disability like dwarfism is something that's going to make your life more difficult. This was one thing that was a solid gold benefit to that disability.
And you know, was one of the main people who put it down. The guy in Game of Thrones who made millions, and then after he made the millions, he said, "Oh, actually, it's cruel to employ people because of their height, and they missed out on all these jobs which they used to get."
So it's madness, absolutely madness.
And you know, actually, another thing to do,
Peter Dinklage.
But Robert, you know something else about when it comes to what one might say height-appropriate jobs is, do you remember it wasn't that long ago that to be a police officer in this country you had to be over a certain height, and they got rid of that because they said, oh, it was offensive.
Well, look at Donald Trump when he had his ears shot off. There was people below his head. They're meant to be there to take a bullet for him.
Let me just be very clear on this, right? I'm under that height that would be required to be a I don't find it offensive that I was too short to be a police officer. In fact, on the contrary, I actually thought that's quite a sensible policy. Because someone my stature wouldn't probably be able to do.
But your point about the arts is right. I mean, you look at the actors and the artists, they're all like, went to Eton, and in the old days, in the 80s, you had all the great working class actors that came through, and they were much better. And now it's all Benedict Cumberbund from Eton, and what's his name from Eton and Arrow, and they're all woke, and they've ruined the arts. And the arts is meant to be all kinds of views, but they won't have certain views, and so it's all one-sided.
You made a very good point about the Secret Service. Growing up as a child and watching Hollywood movies, if you looked at the president being protected by the Secret Service, it was a 6'4" Special Forces Marine who would take a bullet, right? Not a 5'6" woman who can't draw a gun and another one who hides behind a shield. And I'm not saying that it's great that they're in there and it's great that they're doing the job. However,
it's not great.
Lois, how do we ensure that women do have the rights that they want without us just continually pandering to political correctness?
I think we stop forcing. I mean, feminism used to be about finding space in the workplace that can then actually be built around a woman's life. So a woman would be typically, in the 60s to 50s, she would be at home with her kids, but there was a lot of intelligent women who wanted to still be able to do creative work. So the early feminists were like, what can we do at home? What can we do around our children's timetables? How can we work the workplace around us? But now feminism has become about working a woman into a kind of male-dominated workspace and changing the woman herself.
Do you want to have
like that.
you want to have a traditional home life? Nothing wrong with that at all. And I mean, I've not seen people mock you, but I get the impression that idea is fairly widely mocked in our society today.
I think it used to be, and it is a little bit to some extent, but I think there's a total vibe shift. I mean, there's this kind of like trad wife influencer thing getting very popular.
Become cool.
There's a lot of people who are kind of rejecting that kind of Taylor Swift girl boss model of having a life, and a lot of people are hitting their 30s and thinking, you know what, I thought that I wanted to be a girl boss and have a career and like forget about family, but actually it would be kind of nice to have
but I mean as well, in this world we live now, in the old days a working class man would earn a wage enough to pay for his family. Now even people in the, they all have to work, even if they're doctors and stuff. It's not enough for just the man's wage, so the whole world has changed.
I mean, you talk about that, but part of it is this blooming Ed Miliband thing. If you're paying, £300, £400 a month on your energy bill, everyone's poor. Right, because it's, do you know what I mean?
The politicians aren't. They get it paid for both their houses.
By the way, can I read this out to you? Thank you so much, Robert.
Can I just make the point to Robert really quickly, Robert, before you go? Just as sort of what you were saying about on the arts, and people are sort of saying that with dwarfism, it's not unfair to ask them to play various parts in pantomimes. These are the very same people, by the way. Right, I don't mean people with dwarfism. I mean, these are the very same woke lunatics who are the ones who are saying, well, actually, you should be of a certain background to play a certain part. So in other words, they now have a situation where they say straight actors can't play gay parts.
Right.
They say that
ridiculous.
But they're the same ones.
Martin, that guy from Wales who said the Welshman Martin Sheen, he should only be played by Welshmen. Yet he played Brian Clough, who's
no,
from
his name's not Martin
side.
Sheen. What's his name? Martin.
And he played him very well, though.
I know he did, but he's a hypocrite. He shouldn't have been playing it.
Michael Sheen.
Okay, Mr. Sheen.
The worst
he's a
thing
polished
is
performer.
Equality of outcome. It should be equality of opportunity, not equality of
Okay,
outcome.
Robert, thank you so much. I just want to read this to you. This is from Busty Babs, 74.
Dominic.
Hey up, love. Welcome to the wild ride that is Busty Babs. I'm Babs, your favourite Yorkshire lass, with more curves than the country road, and a wit sharper than your nan's knitting needles. I've messaged you on your...
Right, we've only got a minute. Dominic and Grimsby are Glasgow's our last call. Dominic.